Chapter 475. The Bug King of the Nine-Sun Realm, which was originally in the abyss, opened up a tunnel underground and came to the immortal city. Looking at the situation before him, Xiao Pingan understood what was going on in half a second. Xiao Pingan didn't even think as he turned and ran, rapidly flying out of Undying City. It was not that Xiao Pingan was not brave enough. It was just that the difference in level between the two parties was too great. The Bug King was a terrifying existence on the same level as true Lord Mingi. Even a Nine-Sun Realm summoner and true Lord Mingi might not be a match for the Bug King. There was no need for him, a Six-Sun Realm summoner, to be cannon fodder. Moreover, there were already many summoners and disciples of the Wan Shun sect besieging the Bug King. Amidst the commotion in the city, Xiao Pingan saw Steward Fu leading 7 to 8 red-robed attendants, more than 10 black-robed disciples, and dozens of white-robed disciples flying around the Bug King in the air. They were besieging the Golden Bug King. All the attacking methods that the summoners could use were used. Countless fireballs, arrows, and icicles were thrown at the Bug King like raindrops every second. Looking from afar, there were countless colorful fireworks blooming around the Bug King every second. In addition to these spells, there were also 7 to 8 giants on the ground. There were also dozens of summoned beasts such as giant elephant, black dragon, bone dragon, vermilion bird, giant python, and so on. Some of these summoned beasts were waving giant hammers on the ground or carrying house-sized rocks and weapons to attack the Bug King. Some of them were spewing clouds, smoke, fire, and poisonous gas at the Bug King. However, there was a ring of black smoke around the body of the Golden Bug King. It formed a hard armor. All the attacks that were directed at the Bug King were swallowed by the black smoke. They could not hurt the Bug King at all. 2 giants and a black dragon that was spitting out poisonous smoke were swallowed by the black smoke as soon as they got close to the Bug King. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. Manager Fu's beard and hair fluttered in the wind. 2 rays of golden light shot out from his eyes. He stood in the sky above the Insect King's head, and circles of brilliance radiated from his body. Above Manager Fu's head, 3 horizontal lines that were filled with the power of heaven appeared. The horizontal line at the top was divided into 2 parts and represented Yin. The horizontal line at the bottom was divided into 2 parts and represented Yin. The horizontal line at the middle was divided into 2 parts and represented Yang. Kin represented water. On the ground beside the Insect King, a wave of seemingly real, yet illusory seawater suddenly appeared. The seawater seemed to want to drown the Insect King, but it met with the boiling magma beside the Insect King on the ground. When the magma came into contact with water, it cooled down and turned into rocks. Under the influence of the Insect King's power, the rocks turned into magma again and scattered everywhere. When the water came into contact with the magma, it turned into a large cloud of water vapor and smoke. It spewed out from the ground and into the sky, directly turning into clouds and rain that scattered down. At this moment, a spectacle appeared in the center of the immortal city. The magma on the ground was boiling and surging, and violent earthquake waves raised the buildings in the city to the ground. Even the tall building in the immortal city's manager hall was on the verge of collapsing. Meanwhile, in the sky, raindrops were falling down. The flaming hell and the boiling sea collided and surged. Earthquakes and strong winds whistled. The power was truly dazzling. Xiao Pingan only took one look at the battle scene over there and was even more determined to leave. At this moment, almost none of the summoners surrounding the Insect King were weaker than him. There were plenty of 7-sun realms stronger than him. With his little bit of attack power, it was useless even if he joined in. Xiao Pingan also saw Liang Tian. Liang Tian was also attacking the Insect King. Liang Tian summoned a 100-meter-tall icicle the size of a mountain and flew into the sky to shoot the icicle at Chong Wan. However, when the icicle pierced the black gas around the Insect King, it shattered in the blink of an eye and turned into snowflakes and ice shard that exploded in the city. The Insect King did not lose a single hair. While facing the attacks of so many summoners at the same time, the Insect King could still find the time to continuously release ripples and destroy the immortal city. Walala. Part of the city walls outside the immortal city had already started to collapse due to the impact of the earthquake waves and the magma. Thunder, Manager Fu roared out a word, and it shook the entire immortal city. Manager Fu made a hand seal, and then he spat out a mouthful of golden blood into the air. Just as he spat out the blood, the kin hexagram behind him shook, and 3 horizontal lines appeared beside the kin hexagram. It was the Zhun hexagram that represented the word thunder. At this moment, 2 hexagram symbols appeared above Manager Fu's head. Lightning flashed in the large cloud above the immortal city that was condensed from water vapor. A thick bolt of lightning was like a glaring white light pillar that illuminated the entire underground space of the immortal city and blasted toward the Insect King. This lightning pillar blasted the black gas outside the Insect King's body and hit the Insect King's golden body. In an instant, lightning flashed in all directions, and countless tiny lightning bolts danced around the Insect King like silver snakes. Roar! The Insect King seemed to be enraged. It let out a low roar that reverberated in the underground city like a muffled thunder. That roar traveled into the ears of Xia Pingon, who had just flown to the top of the city walls. Xia Pingon felt dizzy, as though someone had smashed his head with a hammer. He felt a little dizzy. Xia Pingon turned his head and saw the Insect King lifting its silkworm-like head. A bright flame was spat out from the Insect King's mouth. It was like a huge sword, and also like a searchlight that swept across the sky. It was about 10,000 meters long. Wherever the flame went, the space would twist, as though invisible folds were being burned. 2 red-clothed deacons, 3 black-robed disciples, and 7 or 8 white-robed disciples were instantly swept by the flame. Under Xia Pingon's eyes, they directly turned into dust and scattered in the air. The items that were dropped from their interspatial equipment, such as gold coins, elixir pills, realm pearls, and various cultivation resources, all fell from the sky. Other than those realm pearls, everything else was turned into ashes in the flame. However, some realm pearls passed through the terrifying flame and fell to the ground unscathed. They sank into the raging magma and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Wherever the flame went, the Manager Hall, which was the landmark building of the Immortal City, was on the verge of collapse. With a swoosh, it directly broke apart at the waist. It was like a bamboo shoot on the ground that was slashed by a sharp sword. It completely collapsed with a loud bang and no longer existed. The flame that the Insect King spat out swept across half a circle and finally blasted toward Manager Fu, who was at the highest point. Lightning flashed in the clouds, and another bolt of lightning blasted toward the flame. In the end, the lightning was directly dispersed by the flame. When the flame was a few hundred meters away from Manager Fu, countless huge ice shields the size of houses appeared around Manager Fu's body in the sky. The ice shields were arranged according to a formation and spun rapidly. The flame blasted onto the ice shields, and the ice shields dissipated. With a boom, a series of thunderclaps sounded in the sky. The 2 divinatory symbols above Manager Fu's head trembled for a moment before dispersing. Manager Fu's face turned pale as blood spurted out from his eyes, ears, and nose. His entire body was on the verge of collapsing from the sky. His body swayed for a moment before he fell from the sky. When the flame rushed in front of Manager Fu, a red-robed deacon beside Manager Fu rushed in front of Manager Fu in a flash. He carried Manager Fu on his back and directly transformed into a ray of flowing light and rushed out of the Immortal City. His figure instantly disappeared in the sky. In the entire Immortal City, no one was a match for the Insect King. Even Manager Fu, who was an 8-sun realm expert, was the same at this moment. Although there seemed to be only a difference of 1 level between an 8-sun realm and a 9-sun realm, the higher the level, even if there was only a difference of 1 level, the difference in strength was like heaven and earth. In the entire Immortal City, no one could withstand an attack from the Insect King. Manager Fu was seriously injured, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. He was rescued by a red-robed deacon. The summoners and experts who besieged the Insect King suffered heavy losses. The remaining red-robed deacons and black-robed disciples of the Wand, Shun sect in the city, no longer had the will to fight. All disciples of the Wand Shin sect quickly evacuate from the immortal city. A red-robed deacon roared angrily before retreating. He also hurriedly evacuated. Actually, there was no need for the red-robed deacon to roar. At this moment, the people in the city who could leave hurriedly scattered. No one would be foolish enough to stay behind. There was no place to stay on the ground. In an instant, the sky surrounding the entire immortal city was filled with summoners who were fleeing for their lives. In front of such a powerful expert, preserving one's life was more important. It wasn't shameful to retreat. Xia Pingan was, of course, among the crowd who were fleeing for their lives. He flew in the sky. The scene in front of him made Xia Pingan feel that the summoners in the immortal city were like a beehive that was destroyed by a fireman with a flintlock. They were the bees that escaped from the beehive. This was the most dangerous aspect of the underground of the immortal city. Compared to the scene in front of him, the previous scenes were nothing. P.S. Fighting is a little taxing on one's brain cells. The update is a little slow. There is one more chapter for today. In the blink of an eye, 2 more 6 Sun Realm summoners were caught up by the red-winged flaming beetles and turned into fireballs as they fell from the sky. Xia Pingan discovered that those winged flaming beetles were very intelligent. He had just released a few dozen fireballs in the air to snipe those winged flaming beetles, but it only took a moment for him to discover that those flaming beetles had already summarized a set of tactics to dodge the fireballs and icicles. Some winged flaming beetles would predict the trajectory of the fireballs and icicles in the air and dodge them in advance. Some winged flaming beetles would form a line in groups of 3 or 5 to reduce the chances of other winged flaming beetles being hit in the air. The flaming beetle at the front would block the attacks, while the flaming beetles at the back would quickly rush over. There are also winged flaming beetles ahead. All of a sudden, a cry of fear and despair rang out from the flying summoners. Xia Pingan also saw it. In the huge underground fissure in front of them, there was a large area of underground rock that was turning red under the high temperature, softening and turning into magma. Then, those winged flame worms drilled out of those underground fissure, flapping their wings, and quickly rushed towards the summoners who were escaping from Undying City. The summoner who had rushed out of Immortal City had actually been surrounded by the Zerg underground. The battle with the winged flaming beetles was already unavoidable and instantly erupted. Chapter 477. At this crucial moment, the winged flaming beetles once again displayed their high intelligence. The instant the sky lit up with the radiance of the spell techniques, the red-winged flaming beetles that were charging from the front immediately charged towards the red-robed deacons of the 10,000 deities sect and the black-robed disciples of the Seven Sun Realm. The winged flaming beetles of the Seven Sun Realm besieged and delayed the summoners of the Seven Sun Realm, while the black-robed winged flaming beetles charged towards Xia Pingan and the other outer disciples and white-robed disciples. Judging from the winged flaming beetle stance, it was as if they wanted to ensure that none of the summoners who had escaped from Immortal City could escape. This was also the first time Xia Pingan had personally experienced such an intense battle ever since he had become summoner. The summoners who had escaped from Immortal City were the ones that Xia Pingan was looking at. There were at least 10,000 of them in total, while the number of winged flaming beetles that had emerged from the ground numbered in the tens of thousands. In an instant, in the vast underground space, in the cracks, caves, and huge layers of rock and soil, thousands of rays of light and flames lit up almost simultaneously within a few seconds. None of the summoners who had reached this level were easy to bully. In terms of intelligence, humans were 100 times more intelligent than those beetles. Everyone, don't hold back anymore. Show us all your abilities. If we can't break out, we'll all be finished, a red-robed deacon of the 10,000 deities, Sect roared and waved his hand. With a flash of light, tens of thousands of cavalrymen appeared on the ground. Those cavalrymen galloped on their war horses and surged forward on the ground like waves. They took out their bows, arrows, and flying axes and continuously shot at the winged flaming beetles. Some cavalrymen even lifted their long lances and charged towards the winged flaming beetles. The red-robed deacon himself suddenly flew down from the sky and landed on the ground. His figure instantly disappeared as he hid among the thousands of cavalrymen and charged forward. These summoned soldiers might be able to deal with ordinary opponents, but they were no match for the winged flaming beetles, which were at least at the sixth sun stage. However, the red-robed deacon did not summon these ordinary soldiers to kill the winged flaming bugs. He only wanted them to interfere with the vision of the winged flaming bugs so that he could hide among them. At the same time, he could slow down the attacks of the winged flaming bugs and increase the consumption of their energy. These winged flaming bugs were most powerful in their long-range fire damage. However, even if they had gas wells in their stomachs, it was impossible for them to spray gas endlessly. Every time they attacked, they would consume their own energy, which would take a certain amount of time. As expected, as soon as the thousands of cavalrymen were summoned, the winged flaming bugs charging at the front were stunned. They instantly lost sight of the red-robed deacon and could no longer accurately lock onto their target. They could only instinctively open their mouths and shoot out flames. In an instant, hundreds of cavalrymen charging at the front were turned into light and dissipated in the flames of the winged flaming bugs. There were also a few winged flaming bugs that rushed into the cavalrymen's formation. Their wings were like blades as they flew past the cavalrymen. One by one, the cavalrymen and their war horses were cut into halves by the wings of the winged flaming bugs and dissipated into light. However, there were too many cavalrymen. It would take some time for the winged flaming bugs to kill them all. Moreover, the cavalrymen were still running and the formation had already spread out. The cavalrymen began to attack the winged flaming bugs. However, regardless of whether it was arrows, lances, or throwing axes, they couldn't deal any damage to the winged flaming bugs. They couldn't break through their physical defenses. However, there were too many cavalrymen in front of them. That seven-sun realm red-robed deacon was hiding among the cavalrymen. As a result, the winged flaming bugs lost their target. The winged flaming bugs became frenzied and could only slaughter the cavalrymen and chase after them. The red-robed deacon set a good example for everyone. It also made everyone understand what kind of tactic they should use to break out of the encirclement. Yes, in this situation, if the summoners from a mortal city wanted to break out of the encirclement of the winged flaming bugs, they had to be strong enough. In this underground battlefield, the more chaotic it was, the better. The more chaotic the battlefield was, the more people there were. The more people there were, the more scattered the attacks of the winged flaming bugs would be. The greater the consumption of energy, the higher the possibility of everyone escaping. No one was a fool. Everyone immediately understood. Amidst the rays of light, cavalrymen came out one after another. The number of charging cavalrymen increased from 1 to 2, then to 10, then to 100, and more infantry phalanxes came out one after another. They spread out and ran on the rugged and complicated ground. They even drilled into some places where there was no one to tread on. Giants came out one after another. They waved the big clubs in their hands and swept away the obstacles in their way. Some even jumped up and used their big clubs to smash the winged flaming bugs. Teams of catapults came out and threw burning fireballs and stones at the winged flame bugs in the sky. Archers came out, Wei Wuzu's infantry came out, and the assassins that were flashing around like ghosts came out. Countless red-crowned cranes, bats, swallows, golden condors, eagles, bone dragons, and blue wands appeared in the sky. These summoned beasts flew everywhere and disturbed the vision of the winged flaming bugs. The hundreds of thousands of bats targeted the winged flaming bugs and flew around the heads of the winged flaming bugs. There were also people who summoned snow, wind, rain, and black clouds. In just an instant, the sky and the ground were filled with a dazzling array of all kinds of summoned creatures. All kinds of beasts, monsters, and things that one could think of and not think of came out. All kinds of rays of light kept emerging. For a time, countless summoned beasts appeared in the sky and on the ground. Countless armies appeared in this gloomy underground abyss and started attacking the winged flaming bugs. They ran in all directions and fled. More than 10,000 summoners broke out of the encirclement. Even if each summoner summoned at least 100 warriors, it was still an army of millions. In fact, even the weakest summoner of the Sixth Sun realm could summon more than 100 warriors from their secret mandrels. Therefore, the number of warriors summoned on the ground quickly reached 5 to 6 million. Summoners of the Sixth Sun realm could recover at least 3 to 4,000 points of divine power from their secret mandrels every month. No one would waste this chance to recover their divine power. Everyone summoned all kinds of people in their secret mandrels to store their divine power. It just so happened that it came in handy at this time. Yes, the more chaotic it was, the better. The more they could disrupt the attacking rhythm of the winged, flaming bugs, the better. It was too spectacular. Xia Pingan flew in the sky, and in the blink of an eye, he discovered that there were countless troops on the ground. They were densely packed, and there were summoning troops charging and attacking everywhere. The feeling was as if he had personally entered an epic war in the ancient times. It was indescribable. Such a scene was also a display of the summoned beasts of the summoners. Xia Pingan saw some summoners summoning musketeers and artillerymen. He also saw some summoners summoning a barbarian army. The flag of the barbarian army had the word Meng inscribed on it. Could be Menghua. Xia Pingan also saw a battle formation formed by martial monks. On the battlefield, those martial monks were very powerful. They used Qin Gong and ran on the rock walls as if they were flying. The roar of engines was heard in the sky. Xia Pingan turned his head and saw that there were actually people summoning a few airships in the sky. The airships were spindle-shaped and had a yellow dragon flag hanging on them. The design of the airships immediately reminded Xia Pingan of the first airship in China's history that he had seen in a photo. It was Xie Shentai, the first airship in China's history, which he had seen in the past. Xie Shentai had built the first airship in China's history during the late Qin dynasty and the early Republic of China. Xia Pingan was really shocked when he saw the airships. The things that the Realm Pearl could summon were simply unimaginable. After seeing these summoned beasts, Xia Pingan realized that there were actually many Realm Pearls that he had yet to fuse with. The extension of the historical timeline in the Realm Pearls might exceed his expectations and not be limited to ancient times. However, this was not the time to watch the fun and study other people's Realm Pearls. Xia Pingan was not idle either. With a wave of his hand, Xia Pingan summoned 2,000 elite slave soldiers and 100 storm cavalrymen and threw them into the battlefield to do their part. The elite slave soldiers summoned by Xia Pingan ran and kept throwing their javelins at those winged flaming bugs. As for the storm cavalrymen he summoned, they ran in all directions and blended into the chaotic ground army. Slave soldiers were the lowest level army that a summoner could summon. Although their fighting strength was not high, they were cheap, easy to use, and could be summoned in large numbers. Aside from Xia Pingan, there were also a lot of other summoners who had summoned a large number of slave soldiers. Therefore, at a glance, the ground was densely packed with all kinds of slave soldiers. There were no less than 500,000 to 600,000 of them. It was even more spectacular than the Battle of Mai. Some summoners could summon tens of thousands of slave soldiers with a wave of their hands. Watching the slave soldiers running all over the battlefield, Xia Pingan also quickly rushed to the ground and performed the secret skill of fire beacon toying with feudal lords. He concealed himself and turned himself into a slave soldier. Then, he blended into the army and rushed forward. If he performed such an illusionary skill and camouflage in front of these high-level Zergs, he would be easily discovered by them. Therefore, the effect would not be very good. However, if he performed the illusionary skill of fire beacon toying with feudal lords in front of such a huge army, the effect would be completely different. He could completely pass himself off as a real one. It was like a drop of water hiding in the sea. It would definitely not be easy to find that drop of water in the surging tide. Of course, the winged flaming bugs could not identify the summoner's incarnation among the millions of targets one by one. Time and conditions did not allow them to do so. They could only kill those summoned creatures in the sky and on the ground. Moreover, at some unknown time, some almighty who had mastered a secret technique had actually summoned a large amount of thick fog underground. Within the thick fog, thousands of soldiers and horses were charging in all directions, and the sky was filled with flying beasts that danced in all directions. Facing such a scene with rolling dense fog and millions of targets in the sky and on the ground, it was the winged flaming bugs' turn to be dumbfounded. For a moment, those winged flaming bugs could only kill the targets in front of them and in their sight. Xia Pingan was running on the ground like a slave soldier. He performed the illusionary skill of fire beacon toying with feudal lords. Constantly, black-robed, red-robed, and white-robed disciples of the Wanshin sect appeared in the dense fog and flew away, attracting the winged flaming bugs that were chasing them in all directions. When the winged flaming bugs caught up with them, they would spray flames or sweep their claws. Only then did the winged flaming bugs realize that they had been fooled. Among the summoners, Xia Pingan was not the only one who mastered illusionary skills. Therefore, more and more summoners appeared in the sky and began to fly in all directions, further diverting the attention of the winged flaming bugs. In fact, there was no big or small magic. As long as it was used at the right time and place, it could exert unexpected power. The scene in the underground cave could not be described as chaotic. Millions of people and non-human creatures were completely mixed up and fighting here. All kinds of illusionary secret skills were revealed. You were in me, you were in me, real was fake, and fake was real. Anyone would be confused, not to mention those tens of thousands of bugs. A scorching flame swept past Xia Pingan. On the road in front of him, a black-winged flaming bug landed. That black-winged flaming bug was so angry that it was about to go crazy. With a sweep of its claws, 5 or 6 storm cavalrymen were swept away and dissipated into light. Then, it opened its mouth and swept across the ground with a line of fire, causing 70 or 80 slave soldiers to dissipate. However, there seemed to be no end to the summoned creatures in front of him. The elite slave soldiers threw their javelins at the black-winged flaming bug as if they were tickling it. The black-winged flaming bug was enraged. Another flame swept over, causing dozens of slave soldiers to dissipate into light. At this time, Xia Pingan had already arrived in front of that black-winged flaming bug along with a few elite slave soldiers. Xia Pingan jumped up, and the 7-star sword whip suddenly appeared in his hand. Before that black-winged flaming bug could react, Xia Pingan slashed down with his sword. Like a hot knife through butter, that black-winged flaming bug's head was chopped off. Chapter 478. When the 7-star sword whip landed on the neck of the winged flaming beetle, Xia Pingan finally understood why people had said that this beetle had evolved. This was because the patterns on the body of the winged flaming beetle could actually move. When the sword slashed down, the dark red patterns on the originally black-winged flaming beetle seemed to have sensed danger. Those patterns immediately swam over and gathered at the neck of the winged flaming beetle, causing its neck to turn dark red, just like the winged flaming beetle of the Seven Sun realm. This sudden change made the winged flaming beetle look like a chameleon. When the 7-star sword whip landed, Xia Pingan discovered that the defensive power of the winged flaming beetle's neck was even harder than the carapaces of the mantis blade bugs he had killed previously. If he had used an ordinary soul weapon, the damage to the winged flaming beetle would have been greatly reduced. Unfortunately, the winged flaming beetle had encountered the 7-star sword whip. The sharpness of the 7-star sword whip was something that even the winged flaming beetle, which had a stronger defensive power, couldn't resist. When Xia Pingan felt the resistance of the sword blade increasing, he increased the strength in his hand and slashed down forcefully. The sword was like a hot knife through butter as it chopped off the head of the winged flaming beetle. Once the winged flaming beetle was killed, its vital energy was absorbed by the seven-star swordwhip. A warm current flowed from the handle of the seven-star swordwhip and started to rapidly replenish the vital energy in Xia Pinggan's body. Originally, Xia Pinggan had been in seclusion in the secret room for many days, and his body was still a little weak. He wasn't in his best condition. Now, as the vital energy of the seven-star swordwhip passed to him, Xia Pinggan immediately felt that he was full and his body had recovered to its peak condition. With a wave of his hand, Xia Pinggan stored the winged flaming beetle's head and body into his secret mandala. The warehouse of the secret mandala in the Sixth Sun realm had undergone a huge change. The entire warehouse was hundreds of thousands of square meters in size and occupied a large area in the mandala. It was a piece of cake to store the corpse of such a bug. The moment he stored the corpse of the winged flaming beetle, the hair on the back of Xia Pinggan's neck stood up. Xia Pinggan immediately felt a sense of danger. He didn't even think about it before his body fell to the ground. Before his hands even touched the ground, the word dig was written by Xia Pinggan was written on the ground. When the word was written, a flaming beetle was dug mother of Mother's Earth. A huge hole appeared on the ground flaming beetles and Xia's flaming earth. Almost as soon as his body sank into the ground, two intersecting high-temperature flames swept across the sky and the ground. Hundreds of slave soldiers and more than a dozen storm cavalrymen in the surroundings instantly turned into light and dissipated in the intersecting high-temperature flames. Two black-winged flaming beetles with murderous auras flew over from the sky at the same time. One of the winged flaming beetle was like a dive bomber that flew vertically towards Xia Pinggan's head. The other black-winged flaming beetle stuck close to the ground and attacked from below. If Xia Pinggan hadn't sunk into the ground in time, he would have been attacked by the two winged flaming beetles at the same time regardless of whether he flew up or landed on the ground. He wouldn't have been able to dodge and would have been severely injured. The two winged flaming beetles had obviously discovered Xia Pinggan. Xia Pinggan had actually used such a strange method to avoid the attacks of the two winged flaming beetles. This was clearly beyond the expectations of the two winged flaming beetles. The moment the winged flaming beetle swooped down from the sky and was going to spit out a mouthful of flames towards a hole where Xia Pinggan was hiding, a figure suddenly drilled out of the ground. As fast as a bolt of lightning or smoke, the figure leaped into the air and grabbed the winged flaming beetle's lower jaw. Then he took out his fish intestine dagger and stabbed it into the winged flaming beetle's mouth, cutting off a large piece of flesh from its tongue. As a result, the winged flaming beetle spurted out blood. The tongue was the winged flaming beetle's weakness. Feeling the pain, the winged flaming beetle had no choice but to stop its plan of spitting flames. Its body tumbled in the air and flew to the side. At the same time, the black figure who grabbed the winged flaming beetle's lower jaw flipped over and rode on the winged flaming beetle's neck. Then he stabbed the winged flaming beetle's eyes with his dagger. Sparks flew in all directions. A piece of transparent crystal the size of a fingernail was cut off from the winged flaming beetle's eyes by the fish intestine dagger. Feeling the pain once again, the winged flaming beetle uttered a weird roar. It closed its eyes and frantically twisted its body in the air, trying to shake off the figure who was riding on its neck. However, it was useless. The black figure who was riding on the winged flaming beetle's neck continued to stab the winged flaming beetle's eyes with his dagger. At the same time, he flashed across the air and grabbed the scales on the winged flaming beetle's neck with one hand. Like performing acrobatics, he dodged the attacks from the winged flaming beetle's two front claws in a ghostly manner. At the same time, he twisted his body around the winged flaming beetle's neck and head, performing various unimaginably difficult movements. At the same time, he kept stabbing the winged flaming beetle's eyes with his dagger. This black figure was the sinking star assassin that had been summoned by Xia Pinggan. While the sinking star assassin was fighting with the winged flaming beetle, the two figures twisted and tumbled in the air. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the thick fog and flew far away. At the same time, the winged flaming bug that was approaching Xia Pingan from the ground suddenly saw a whole 50 m away from where Xia Pingan was hiding. The winged flaming bug didn't even think about it as it rapidly approached Xia Pingan. It stuck close to the ground and opened its mouth, spitting out another beam of flame. Xia Pingan, who had just drilled out of the ground, was instantly swept away by the flame and disappeared. It was another illusion of fire beacon trick. By the time the winged flaming beetle realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. Another head suddenly emerged from the ground where the winged flaming beetle had flown past. It was Xia Pingan, who had fiercely rushed out of the hole. The 7 stars sword whip in his hand had already pierced into the winged flaming beetle's abdomen. Xia Pingan stood firmly on the ground with his sword in both hands. The huge sword in Xia Pingan's hand had directly cut open a terrifying, bloody wound several feet deep on the winged flaming beetle's abdomen. The wound extended all the way to its tail. Ouch! With a painful wail, the winged flaming beetle crashed onto the ground like an airplane that had failed to land. A bloody ditch more than 50 meters long was pushed out on the ground. Gravel splashed everywhere as it died in an instant. The wound was too big. Even for the winged flaming beetle, it was still fatal. Xia Pingan rushed to the winged flaming beetle's side and put away its body. With a wave of his hand, another 300 elite slave soldiers were summoned. They continued to run and charge on the ground. Xia Pingan once again turned into an ordinary slave soldier and blended in with the other slave soldiers. The fire beacon trick created another illusion of Xia Pingan. The illusion disappeared into the thick fog in the sky and flew away. Sure enough, another winged flaming beetle was fooled and chased after the illusion of Xia Pingan. When the winged flaming beetle caught up with Xia Pingan's illusion and tore it apart, it realized that it had been fooled. When it flew back, it saw hundreds of thousands of elite slave soldiers running all over the ground within a radius of hundreds of miles. How could it tell where the elite slave soldiers that were here a moment ago had gone? When the surrounding slave soldiers saw the winged, flaming beetle descending, dozens of javelins flew over and pierced the winged, flaming beetle's body. Ding, ding, dang, dang, dang. The summoned slave soldiers charged at the winged, flaming beetle without fear of death and continued to attack. The winged flaming beetle was enraged. It spat out a flame, and dozens of elite slave soldiers turned into light shadows and dissipated. After a short while, Xia Pingan had already run far away. Another black-winged, flaming bug flew close to the ground. Its flapping wings were like high-speed blades, slicing through the air. Just like that, over 100 slave soldiers, terracotta warriors, and 7 to 8 knights were turned into light and dissipated. As an elite slave soldier, Xia Pingan only raised the spear in his hand. The winged flaming beetle thought that he was a slave soldier, so its wings flew past him steadily. Xia Pingan was fine. However, when the winged flaming beetle's wings flew past the spear in Xia Pingan's hand, it realized that the spear was not a spear, but a terrifying 7-star sword whip. The spear was not broken, but the wings of the winged flaming beetle were broken. The wings of the firebug were actually weaker in terms of defense. The moment the firebug flew past the spear, the 2 pairs of wings on one side of the firebug were immediately torn apart by the soul armament in Xia Pingan's hand. It was as if Xia Pingan had found the Big Dipper sword whip and slammed into it. After losing its balance, the winged flaming beetle heavily fell to the ground once again. Before it could pick itself up, Xia Pingan had already arrived at it. "Lie down!" Xia Pingan roared as he lifted one of his huge feet and stomped on the head of the winged flaming beetle. The winged flaming beetle was just about to raise its head when it heavily smashed its head into the ground. What a terrifying strength! The winged flaming beetle still wanted to struggle. However, Xia Pingan's huge sword had already pierced into its head, nailing it to the ground and killing it instantly. The third one, Xia Pingan put away the corpse of this 7-stars winged flaming beetle and repeated the same trick. He made an illusion of himself and ran to one side so as to attract the attention of the other winged flaming beetles. At the same time, he hid himself and waited for those elite slave soldiers to catch up with him. After that, he pretended to be an elite slave soldier and blended into the hundreds of thousands of elite slave soldiers and rushed forward. Chapter 479. In such a chaotic battle, the power of the seven-star sword whip, as a top-notch soul weapon, was fully displayed. Although the winged flaming beetle was more difficult to deal with than the mantis blade bug, and the black-winged flaming beetle's physical defense was almost comparable to that of a seven-sun realm zerg, Xiao Pingon only needed to exert some strength in his hand, and the seven-star sword whip would still cut down the black-winged flaming beetle easily. After Xiao Pingon killed the 5-winged flaming beetles and kept the 5th black-winged flaming beetle into the secret mandala, a red-winged flaming beetle with faint blue stripes suddenly broke through the thick fog in front of them and appeared in front of Xiao Pingon. It stared at Xiao Pingon with cold and angry golden eyes, and its murderous aura surged. Xiao Pingon immediately felt that he had been targeted. A red-winged flaming beetle was equivalent to a seven-sun realm summoner. Xiao Pingon didn't even think about it. He summoned another 200 elite slave soldiers and used the fire beacon trick illusion to create an illusion of himself running away. As for himself, he blended into the elite slave soldiers and ran in all directions. This way, he could distract the winged flame bugs. Xiao Pingon had already used this move several times before. It was quite useful and had never failed him. However, it failed this time. The dark red-winged, flaming beetle stabbed one of its forelimbs into the ground. With a loud boom, a circle of fire spread from the ground. The rolling flames swept across the ground like ripples, and like a violent shockwave, the elite slave soldiers within a 100-meter radius, as well as some of the summoned creatures such as soldiers summoned by other summoners, were all turned into light and dissipated in the fire. Even the illusion created by the illusory technique just now dissipated under the impact of the fire. Even the surrounding fog was swept away. Seeing that the fire was rushing towards him at an extremely fast speed, Xiao Pingon instantly cast a water shield around his body to offset the shockwave of the fire. This time, all the summoned creatures in the surroundings were cleared. Xiao Pingon, who was hiding among these summoned creatures, stood out like a crane in a flock of chickens. He was instantly exposed, and the illusory technique was no longer effective. That red-winged flaming beetle flapped its wings and charged towards Xiao Pingon. Its wings cut through the air, and the air around it vibrated, making people dizzy. The winged flaming beetle's 2 front claws seemed to directly grab Xiao Pingon's head and chest. Damn it! This red-winged flaming beetle is indeed powerful. Previously, Xiao Pingon, he had never fought a flaming beetle. He wanted to see how powerful it flaming beetle was. Flaming beetle and flaming beetle. When he saw the beetle charging towards him, flaming beetle, Xia, flaming beetle, and flaming beetle, and flaming beetle, flaming beetle. Flaming beetle, flaming a man and a beetle, at this moment, were like 2 knights charging at each other. Neither of them flinched. In an instant, they collided head-on. The moment they collided, Xiao Pingon suddenly lowered his body and avoided the 2 front claws that swept towards him. The sharp wind was like 2 sharp guillotines, directly sweeping past Xiao Pingon's nose and head, causing Xiao Pingon's hair to almost stand on end and the skin on his face to hurt. Xiao Pingon slid across the winged flaming beetle's body, sticking close to the ground. Then, he used the 7-star sword whip in his hand to slash at the abdomen of the red-winged flaming beetle. The moment the tip of the sword touched the winged flaming beetle's abdomen, the dark blue pattern on the beetle's body suddenly swam over and appeared at its abdomen. When a 7-star sword whip hit the dark blue pattern, the sword trembled and was actually unable to pierce through. This made Xiao Pingon shocked. He exerted all his strength, but was still unable to pierce through in just a few tenths of a second. The seven-star sword whip and the winged flaming beetle's abdomen came into close contact, producing an ear-piercing sound of metal scraping against each other. A dazzling flame flashed past. Could that blue pattern represent the defensive power of an 8th-sun realm insectoid? Powerful, too powerful. In the previous exchange, Xiaoping's hands were numb. He finally understood how powerful this evolved winged flaming beetle was because he realized that his 7-star's sword whip couldn't break through the red-winged flaming beetle's defense. How could he fight such a battle? He could only be beaten up. Therefore, after sliding under the winged flaming beetle's abdomen, Xiaoping didn't even think about it and directly flew towards a huge crack in the ground in the distance. At the same time, he used his illusion technique again and created 5 or 6 illusions that looked exactly like him, flying in different directions. At this point in the battle, many summoners had already broken through the encirclement of the winged flaming beetles and left in different directions. The winged flaming beetle chased after Xiaoping from behind. Its speed was actually faster than Xiaoping's. Moreover, it completely ignored the illusions that Xiaoping had created and directly chased after Xiaoping. It had already locked onto Xiaoping's real body. F***CK. Xiaoping's heart tightened. Without even turning his head, he threw 5 or 6 fireballs and 7 or 8 icicles behind him in an attempt to slow down the winged flaming beetle's speed. Xiaoping discovered that the winged flaming beetle didn't care about these attacks at all. It directly faced them head-on, allowing the fireballs and icicles to hit its head and shatter it into pieces. Its speed didn't change at all. All of a sudden, Xiaoping's heart tightened. Without even thinking about it, he abruptly dodged to the side. A terrifyingly hot flame brushed past Xiaoping's body and arrived in front of him. Even from several meters away, Xiaoping could still smell the burnt smell of his hair. At this moment, a large group of bats suddenly flew out of the dense fog and circled around the winged flaming beetle's head while chirping. Like a piece of black cloth, they interfered with the winged flaming beetle's vision and scratched its eyes. This made the winged flaming beetle furious. It constantly waved its claws and spurted flames, burning those bats into ashes. As a result, its speed gradually decreased. Xiaoping seized the opportunity and instantly distanced himself from the winged flaming beetle. From the huge underground crevice, Xiaoping shot up into the sky like a rocket and rapidly flew upwards. On both sides of the underground crevice were rocks that looked like mountain walls. Occasionally, some magma would flow out of those rocks and fall from the sky, forming magma waterfalls. At this point, he had already flown out of the dense fog, and everything around him became clear. After getting rid of those bats, the red-winged, flaming beetle caught up with him in the blink of an eye. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. Xiaoping released a magical attack behind him. The winged flaming beetle didn't show any weakness and attacked Xiaoping with flames. One man and one insect were like fighter jets chasing each other in this huge underground crevice. They were entangled in high-speed flight. The winged flaming beetle was completely immune to Xiaoping's attacks, including those of the lightning and the sky-burning vermilion bird. As for the winged flaming beetle's attacks, as long as Xiaoping came into contact with it, he would either be seriously injured or killed. Xuanwu's attribute was water. In terms of nature, he should be able to restrain the winged flaming beetle. However, in this high-speed environment, he couldn't summon it at all. This was a completely unequal battle. However, during this battle, Xiaoping made a discovery. He discovered that when his attacks landed on the winged flaming beetle seemed to be able to withstand his attacks. However, every time the power of his attacks exploded, the winged flaming beetle's wings would instantly shrink back into its armpits. Because both parties were moving very fast, the winged flaming beetle's wings would shrink and unfold in an instant. Therefore, it looked like the winged flaming beetle was flying without any scruples. The wings were one of the winged flaming beetle's weaknesses. With this discovery, Xiaoping's spirits were lifted. He immediately thought of a way to get rid of the winged, flaming beetle's pursuit. I can give it a try. I'll do it right away. With this thought in mind, Xiao waved his hand, and more than 10 icicles were blasted behind him. Those icicles were real, but there were also illusions. One of the icicles was different from the others. That icicle contained his other summoning techniques. As expected, the winged flaming beetle still ignored the bombardment of those icicles. The icicles exploded one after another under its claws. However, when the 7th icicle exploded, 7 to 8 nets behind the exploded icicles instantly spread out and wrapped around the winged flaming beetle's wings. Seeing the winged flaming beetle suddenly changing its direction like an airplane that crashed and hit the nearby rock wall, causing a big hole in the rock wall. Numerous broken stones flew down. Xiao burst out laughing. The net spell was very simple. It was the summoning spell that Xiao had mastered the earliest. But when he used it at the right place and time, and when he found the right opportunity, he was able to paralyze the winged flaming beetle's ability to fly. After its wings were bound by the net skill, the winged flaming beetle was infuriated. It constantly tore apart the net skill that wrapped around its wings with its claws while uttering furious roars. Before the winged flaming beetle's wings could break free from the net, Xiao had already spurred his horse and seized the opportunity to quickly fly away. After he had put some distance between them, he used an illusion to conceal his figure and change his flight path. In the end, he finally got rid of the winged flaming beetle's pursuit. Several hours later, Xiao flew out of the huge underground tunnel that led to the undead city and saw the blue sky and the sea once again. F***CK, I'm finally out. Xiao felt that he had just survived a disaster. Chapter 480. The winged flaming beetles underground stopped chasing after a certain extent. Xiao did not encounter any winged flaming beetles later on. There were about 2,000 to 3,000 summoners gathered above the island at the underground entrance of the Immortal City. More than half of these summoners were escaping from the Immortal City. There were also 2 red deacons in the sky. One of them was Liang Tian. Liang Tian also ran out. There were also many other black-robed and white-robed disciples. There were also many summoners in the Immortal Sea. When they saw the commotion here, they flew over to watch the show. This caused more and more summoners to gather above the island. Another one came out. He's really lucky. Seeing Xiao fly out from the underground, some of the summoners who were watching exclaimed. The sea breeze blew, and the surrounding voices blew into Xiao ears. The destruction of the immortal city of the 10,000 gods sect was indeed a big deal to the summoners gathered in the Immortal Sea. However, for those who were watching the show, it was not a big deal. They just felt that it was very sudden. The Abyssal Worm King was very strong, but it was only in the Nine Suns realm. There were no Nine Suns realm powerhouses in the immortal city of the 10,000 gods sect, but in the Immortal Sea, there was more than one Nine Suns realm powerhouse. Of course, this did not mean that the 10,000 gods sect was weak. It was just that the Immortal City was only a small branch of the 10,000 gods sect in the Immortal Sea. It was usually managed by the Eight Suns realm, and there were no elders overseeing it. The 10,000 gods sect did not send a Nine Suns realm powerhouse to guard it. Therefore, the Abyssal Worm King took advantage of the situation. If the 10,000 gods sect had a Nine Suns realm elder overseeing the Immortal City, it would be hard to say what the Immortal City situation would be like now. Standing in the void, Xiao found that everyone's eyes were focused on him. The feeling of being the center of attention was not very good. He looked around and quickly flew into the crowd beside him. He was not in a hurry to leave and continued to watch here. The Abyssal Worm King launched a surprise attack on the Immortal City. I heard that the Immortal City is finished. I wonder how is the Abyss stronghold of the 10,000 gods sect? Wan Shin Sect's Abyss stronghold is protected by a top-level formation. Even the Abyss Worm King can't do anything about it. It should be able to protect itself. If that Abyss stronghold was so easy to take down, the Worm King would have directly attacked the stronghold. Why would he need to attack the immortal city from the underground? The crowd in the sky discussed. Abyssal Worm King. It hasn't appeared for many years. I didn't expect it to appear this time. Those winged flame beetles should have quite a few good realm pearls on them, right? Why don't we go down and make a fortune, kill a few winged flame beetles, and see if we can get a few realm pearls? We don't know the situation underground yet. Didn't you see the disciples of Wan Shun's sect running out? We don't know how many insects are coming out of the abyss. Let's see the situation first. The surrounding crowd was filled with noises. All of a sudden, a white-robed disciple of Wan Shun's sect with the smell of sulfur and gunpowder flew to Xiaoping's side. After sizing up Xiaoping, he asked, "Brother, are you also from Immortal City?" "Yes." Xiaoping nodded. "Are you an outer disciple of Wan Shun's sect?" "Yes." Xiaoping nodded. "Deacon Liang Tian wants to ask you something." Xiaoping didn't know what Liang Tian wanted to do, but he had a good impression of Liang Tian. He also saw the place where Liang Tian was. Many outer disciples flew out from the ground and were called over. Liang Tian and another red-robed deacon asked a few questions one by one. After that, some of the outer disciples of the 10,000 Divine sect left. Liang Tian didn't make things difficult for them. Xiaoping directly followed that white-robed disciple and flew to Liang Tian's side. "Greetings, Deacon Liang." Xiaoping bowed towards Liang Tian. At this moment, his voice had changed, so Liang Tian couldn't recognize it. "What's your name? Are you also a disciple of Wan Shun's sect? I don't think you look familiar." Liang Tian asked as he glanced at Xiaoping's face. "I'm Zhang Tai. I've just joined Wan Shun's sect for less than a month. I've only been in Immortal City for a few days. I've not made any contributions to the sect." Xiaoping said straightforwardly. "Did you see any other deacons below?" "No." Xiaoping shook his head. "Where's the insectoid army?" Xiaoping also shook his head. "Did you see anyone else?" Those summoners who had escaped from Immortal City had either returned to the surface or were hiding in the maze-like underground world to avoid those winged flaming bugs. Some of them were even escaping towards the Abyss Fortress, hoping to find shelter in the fortress. When he broke through the encirclement on the battlefield, Xiaoping saw that different summoners would choose different directions. He chose to return to the surface first. Liang Tian asked Xiaoping several questions consecutively, and Xiaoping answered all of them. It seemed that Liang Tian wanted to know more about the underground world. Finally, Liang Tian told Xiaoping the catastrophe in Immortal City was indeed unexpected. However, when we deacons left Immortal City, we've already contacted the Abyss Fortress. The Abyss Fortress allowed us to break through the encirclement and return to the surface first. Wan Shun's sect has already known what happened in Immortal City. Elders will come here to deal with it. Don't panic. You're an outer disciple of Wan Shun's sect, so the sect doesn't impose too many requirements on you. You could do whatever you want these days. If you want to find us, you can come to Misty Mountain on Cloud Island, which is one of the strongholds of Wan Shun's sect in Immortal Sea. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Deacon Liang. Xiaoping was just an outer disciple. Therefore, Liang Tian didn't pay too much attention to him. After a few words, there was no more problem. Xiaoping flew to one side and observed silently. There were still a lot of summoners coming out of Immortal City from the underground entrance. Xiaoping took a look. In the battle with the winged flaming bugs, the winged flaming bugs plan should have failed. There weren't many summoners who died. Everyone used their magical powers, and most of them should have escaped. A few hours later, the sky gradually darkened. Two red-clothed deacons led a team of white-robed disciples and hundreds of outer disciples to fly out from below. They quickly met up with Liang Tian and the others. Several red-clothed deacons gathered together and discussed in a low voice. They didn't continue to wait here. Instead, they left a black-robed disciple and 5 white-robed disciples to guard the entrance. Several red-clothed deacons led the white-robed and black-robed disciples of Wan Shun's sect, as well as a group of outer disciples to leave this place and fly towards the south. There were about 2,000 people who left. Xiaoping also left with the group. At this time, it was safer to follow a large group. It was better than running around alone. There were all kinds of people who were watching the bustle at the entrance and exit. There might be some who had ulterior motives and wanted to take advantage of the situation. Flying over the vast sea with the sea breeze, Xiao Pingon suddenly remembered his doppelganger, Luo, who was still in Paris. He had left in a hurry and didn't have time to make any preparations. Once the spirit body left the body would fall into a deep sleep, just like a vegetable. The consumption of the body would be normal, and it wouldn't have any ability to protect itself. He fainted in Emily's house. He didn't know what Emily would do to him. If Emily buried him or threw him on the street, that doppelganger would be finished. Xiao Pingon was a little worried, but at this time, it was useless to worry. He could only settle the matter of his main body first. The worst-case scenario was that his previous doppelganger was really damaged and died. All his previous efforts would be in vain. At worst, he could only find another doppelganger when he returned to the spiritual realm. After flying in the air for 5 or 6 hours, a huge island appeared on the horizon ahead. It was a coconut-shaped island with an area of about 70 to 80,000 square kilometers. The island was very lively. There were summoners flying everywhere in the sky. There seemed to be 2 large-scale cities on the island, one in the south and one in the north. Looking down from the sky at night, the north and south ends of the island were brightly lit and densely populated. In the middle of the island was a long and towering mountain range. Some of the mountain peaks seemed to be active volcanoes. They were still emitting thick black smoke. Magma could be seen flowing down from the volcanoes and rolling into the sea. After arriving here, Liang Tian and the others flew towards the mountain peak in the middle of the island. Xiao Pingon separated from the rest of the group. Many outer disciples in the group also separated at this time. Everyone understood that when they arrived at Ethereal Mountain, outer disciples wouldn't enjoy much rights in the sect. They would be inferior to others everywhere. They were afraid that they wouldn't be too comfortable. Therefore, it was better to find a place to settle down on the island. At least they could have more freedom. If they really collected enough insect crystals, it wouldn't be too late to go to Ethereal Mountain after seeing the reaction of Wanshan's sect. Xiao Pingon and some outer disciples of Wanshan's sect were divided into 2 groups. One group flew towards the city in the south of the island, and the other group flew towards the city in the north of the island. Xiao Pingon was closer and flew towards the city in the north of Cloud Island. After a while, Xiao Pingon landed on a brightly lit street in the city. There were too many people here. It was more than 10 times more than a mortal city. The street was brightly lit, and pedestrians were weaving together. It was a lively atmosphere. There were people selling all kinds of things. Moreover, the people here weren't as monotonous as a mortal city. Looking at the people on the street, there were people from all walks of life. There were even mermaids swaggering around the city. Many mermaids were peddling things like pearls and medicines from the sea. They had just come from the destroyed immortal city to such a lively place. The huge contrast made Xiao Pingon absent-minded for a moment. Fortune-telling and divination, honest to all. If you look for me, Lu Banxian, you only need 100 gold coins. Xiao Pingon was sizing up this bustling street when suddenly a familiar voice drilled into his ears. He turned his head and saw Lu Yiqian, who was wearing a cyan summoner's robe, carrying a horsetail whisk on his back, and holding a bamboo pole in his right hand. On the bamboo pole, there was a signboard for fortune-telling. Lu Yiqian was shouting as he walked away from afar. Xiao Pingon was slightly stunned. This guy, what a coincidence. He actually met him here again. However, this wasn't what surprised Xiao Pingon. What surprised Xiao Pingon even more was that he saw people from Blood Demon Church here. Chapter 481. There were a total of 6 people from the Blood Demon Church. They were walking on the crowded street about 50 meters away from Lu Yiqian, who was calling out for fortune-telling. Each of them was using their sharp gazes to scan the passers-by on the street. Xiao Pingon recognized one of them. He had seen him in Yin Mountain City before. That person had a sallow face and a little goatee. His eyes looked like only a slit. As for the other 5 people, Xiao Pingon was able to confirm that they were from the Blood Demon Church. It was very simple. It was because they were wearing dark red mage robes. At the chest area of the mage robes, there was a strange-looking heart-protecting mirror sewn into the mage robes. It was obvious that they were in cahoots. As for that heart-protecting mirror, upon closer inspection, it was clearly a reflection mirror. It was just that the reflection mirror was sewn into the mage robes and covered part of the edge area. It was used as a heart-protecting mirror and was not that eye-catching. They could bring the reflection mirror wherever they went and would not randomly wave it in their hands and cause trouble for themselves. If it was the previous Xia Pingon, they would be able to lock onto him as long as he waved it in front of the reflection mirror. Seeing that the people from the Blood Demon Church were walking towards him, Xia Pingon did not panic, nor did he run. Instead, he turned around casually and stood in front of a mermaid stall selling sea pearls. It looked like he was choosing sea pearls. After a short while, Lu Yiqian walked past Xia Pingon while shouting, "Fortune-telling and divination, honest to all. If you look for me, Lu Banxian, you only need 100 gold coins." Lu Yiqian shouted as he walked past the place where Xia Pingon had just been. His nose suddenly twitched as he sniffed the air. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Then, he scanned the surrounding crowd and slowed down his pace. The 6 people from the Blood Demon Church walked past him. Xia Pingon deliberately turned around and revealed his side profile so that one of the reflection mirrors could reflect on him. In the end, those people's reflection mirrors did not show any abnormalities. Xia Pingon finally heaved a sigh of relief. After Xia Pingon grasped the secret transformation technique, the Blood Demon Church's reflection mirror was completely useless to him in the god-slaying bug world. With the greatest threat removed, Xia Pingon wanted to see how these people from the Blood Demon Church would find him. With a thought, Boy of Blessings jumped out of Xia Pingon's secret mandala and climbed onto Xia Pingon's shoulder with a smile. In the blink of an eye, he had caught up with those people of Bloody Demon Sect. Xia Pingon wanted to see what tricks the people of Bloody Demon Sect were playing recently. After all, if you know your enemy, you will win every battle. This purple sea pearl costs 20 gold coins each. Do you want to buy it? If you don't want to buy them, don't stop me from doing business. The merman who sold the sea pearls asked when he saw Xia Pingon playing with a few sea pearls. These sea pearls are not bad. Give me 5 of them." Xia Pingon smiled. With a wave of his hand, he took out 100 gold coins and bought 5 sea pearls. He put away the sea pearls and turned to leave. Just as he turned around and took 2 steps, an old face suddenly appeared from the side and blocked his path, almost giving Xia Pingon a fright. "Little brother, I think you look quite familiar. It seems that we are fated. Why don't I read your fortune? It only costs 100 gold coins. Who knows? I might be able to turn misfortune into fortune for you." Lu Yiqian looked at Xia Pingon with a smile. How did this guy find him? He didn't even think of greeting him just now. Thoughts flashed through Xia Pingon's mind. There were so many people on the street, and this old man Lu didn't read the fortune of everyone he met. How could it be so coincidental for him to block his path? Looking at Lu Yiqian's eyes that were staring at him with a smile that was not a smile, his gaze was slightly strange and even had a bit of scrutiny. He was sizing him up from head to toe. Xia Pingon immediately understood that this Lu Yiqian already knew that he was Chui Li. Back then, he had used Chui Li's identity to come in contact with him. Xia Pingon smiled. "All right, then I'll have to ask old mister to read my fortune. If it's not accurate, I won't pay. Come. Little brother, let's talk on the side of the street. I'll read your fortune later." Lu Yiqian smiled and walked directly to a house on the side of the street. With a wave of his hand, he took out a small table and stool and set up a stall on the side of the street. He even invited Xia Pingon to sit in front of him and began to read Xia Pingon's fortune. "Little brother, do you want to draw lots or read your face?" "I'll read your face." Lu Yiqian waved his hand and set up a mute boundary in front of everyone so that their conversation would not be heard by the people outside. Then, he carefully looked at Xia Pingon's face, and his face suddenly turned serious. "Little brother, I'm afraid you're in big trouble now. You might even be killed." "Oh, why?" Xia Pingon raised his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. "Mister, please explain in detail." Lu Yiqian stroked his beard, looking at little brother's face. It should be your enemies looking for you. Once they find you, little brother, you'll be in great danger. Hearing this, Xiao Pinggan wasn't too surprised, because if Lu Yiqian could recognize that he was Chui Li, then it wouldn't be strange for Lu Yiqian to know that Chui Li was wanted by the immortal city of the 10,000 deities sect. Mister, you're right. I'm indeed in trouble now, and someone is indeed looking for me, Xiao Pinggan said with a smile. How can I resolve this? It's not difficult to resolve it. Actually, there's a way, Lu Yiqian said with a smile. Oh, what way? Little brother, you might find it hard to believe, but as long as you do it, I'll guarantee your safety. Mister, you haven't said what method it is. It's very simple. As long as you listen to my arrangements in the future and do whatever I tell you to do, I'll guarantee that you'll be fine. Lu Yiqian suddenly smiled. That smile was indescribably strange and also somewhat unfamiliar. Haha, mister, are you crazy? Well, seeing that you're half right, I'll pay you 100 gold coins for your divination. Take it as a treat. Xiao Pinggan took out 100 gold coins and placed them on the table. Then, he turned around and was about to leave. If I shout that Xiao Pinggan, who's being chased by the Blood Demon Church, is here, little brother, will you be able to leave? Lu Yiqian said calmly. Xiao Pinggan was greatly shocked, but his expression was somewhat blank. He sat down again. Brother Lu, are you trying to trick me? Since you can recognize that I'm Xiao Pinggan, I'll admit it. The immortal city is indeed looking for me. But Brother Lu, you said that I'm Xiao Pinggan. Where did that come from? If you shout like that, people will die. Little brother, if you're not Xiao Pinggan, why did you hide when those people from the Blood Demon Church came from behind me? Lu Yiqian looked at Xiao Pinggan, narrowed his eyes, and suddenly warned, Little brother, you'd better not summon anything. If you really do something, you're courting death. Chapter 482. Xiao Pinggan was already prepared to take action, and several powerful techniques were ready to be unleashed. However, on the surface, he was still very calm. Suddenly, he sighed and smiled bitterly. Brother Lu, when we first met, until now, we have no grievances or enmity. It could be considered fate, and we got along quite well. To be able to meet again today, I don't know how Brother Lu recognized me, but why do you have to make things difficult for me? Just now, I wasn't hiding from the Blood Demon Church. I didn't even know who those people were. I was just hiding from you. That's all, huh? I'm just a fortune teller. What's there to hide from? Lu Yiqian shook his head and smiled with a genial look. Those people from the Blood Demon Church have been in the Undying Sea for a few days. Everyone knows that they are here to find Xiao Pinggan. I have been watching them, and if I didn't know their identities, I wouldn't have noticed your abnormality just now. To be honest, I was framed in the Wanshan sect, and the Undying City is now looking for me, so I changed my appearance. Brother and I know each other. How can I not hide when I suddenly see you? Xiao Pinggan said unhurriedly, because he was already certain that Lu Yiqian couldn't know that he was Xiao Pinggan. Lu Yiqian's words just now were half his deduction, and the other half should be a bluff. This guy was too cunning. If you don't believe me, you can ask the deacon of the Undying City to see if I was previously wanted by the Undying City. When Xiao Pinggan said this, Lu Yiqian's eyes moved, and he hesitated instead. You are wanted by the Wanshan sect. What's the matter? Tell me. Xiao Pinggan didn't hide anything and directly told her about the trouble he caused because of the 7-star sword whip. He even told her how he went to the immortal city and poisoned Meng Yidong. The details were complete and vivid. It was obvious that he wasn't making it up. According to Xiao Pinggan's story, the 7-star sword whip had become a top-grade soul tool that he had accidentally found in the deep abyss canyon. Because he had used it to kill a few mantis blade bugs, it had attracted the jealousy of others and led to the series of events that followed. Of course, Xiao Pinggan also kept some secrets. He didn't say that he knew the soul refining method, didn't say that he was an outer disciple of Wanshan sect, and didn't say that he had joined Wanshan sect. The more information Lu Yiqian knew, the more information he could piece together. If he didn't say anything, Lu Yiqian wouldn't know everything, so he left some leeway. According to Xiao Pinggan, After he was wanted by the immortal city, he could only conceal his identity and change his appearance. He was afraid of being recognized by his acquaintances. When he met Lu Yiqian just now, he just subconsciously wanted to avoid him. It was completely reasonable. Oh, what does that 7-star sword whip look like? Take it out for me to see, Lu Yiqian said directly. Here. Is it convenient? Xiao Pinggan looked around at the bustling streets. What's inconvenient about it? It's fine now. Lu Yiqian waved his hand and cast an illusion. He directly transformed the appearance of Xiao Pinggan and his fortune-telling in the silent enchantment. Outsiders wouldn't be able to find any abnormalities. Xiao Pinggan could only take out the 7-star sword whip. Seeing the 7-star sword whip, Lu Yiqian's eyes lit up. He snatched the 7-star sword whip from Cui Li and examined it over and over again before praising. It really is a top-notch soul item. It actually has 2 forms, a sword and a whip. I didn't think that Brother Cui Li's luck would be so good to be able to find such a soul item in the underground abyss. TSK, TSK, TSK. Not bad, not bad. This soul item in Brother Cui Li's hands would really make people jealous and bring trouble to themselves. How about this? I'll work a bit harder, and I'll take care of this soul item for you. Brother Cui, this soul tool can be considered a blessing for Brother Cui to take a fancy to it. I don't have any objections. Just treat it as money for Brother Cui. Please let me go. Xiao Pinggan's face was bitter, but when he heard Lu Yiqian calling him Cui Li again, he suddenly felt relieved. He knew that he had temporarily passed the most dangerous hurdle. Lu Yiqian, this bastard, just used words to trick him. If he couldn't keep his cool and let Lu Yiqian know that he was Xiao Pinggan, he didn't know what would happen. What other good things do you have on you? Take them all out. Lu Yiqian licked his lips, his eyes sweeping over Xiao Pinggan's body, already regarding him as a fat sheep. Brother, when we first met, I didn't have anything good on me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone to the 1,000 Death sect to sell my life for 2 realm beads. Now, apart from some gold coins and pills, I really don't have anything that Brother Cui likes. Those pills and gold coins probably won't catch Brother Cui's eye. Xiao Pinggan spread out his hands and said. At this time, Xiao Pinggan also discovered that this Lu Yiqian was definitely not a fortune teller. This guy could blackmail him and even dare to stalk the Blood Demon Church. He was definitely a bold character and wasn't a kind person. His previous image was put on by himself, which could be considered as a layer of protection. Haha, what you said makes sense. Your transformation technique is not bad. Where did you learn it? I almost couldn't tell. It's a realm bead. Xiao Pinggan described in detail what the Xiaozhuan on the realm bead looked like. I obtained it by chance previously. I don't know how I fused with it and mastered such a secret technique. All right, since we know each other, I won't make things difficult for you. Lu Yiqian looked at Xiao Pinggan with a smile, his eyes like needles. With a move of his hand, a golden silkworm baby appeared in his hand. That silkworm baby's entire body was shining with golden light, and there was a blood-red line on its back. It looked a bit like something that was summoned, but there was a trace of vital energy and blood that a summoned creature didn't have. Come, open your mouth and eat this. Then we can talk slowly. Damn it, it's the soul-seizing goo again. Why do these old things always like to use such insidious things? Xiao Pinggan looked at that soul-seizing goo, his eyelids twitched. He had already cursed Lu Yiqian's 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. However, at this moment, Xiao Pinggan was no longer the Xiao Pinggan that he had met with Supreme Minghe. Xiao Pinggan's face showed that he was struggling. Brother, there's no point in doing this. Why do you have to do this? Ha! It seems that brother knows what this is. Then, I don't need to talk nonsense. I think it's very interesting and very necessary. You can choose now. Either I send you to the Wanshun sect and receive a reward, or you can try to release the technique you prepared and see if you can escape from my hands. Or you can obediently swallow this soul-seizing goo and give me some time to go to the Wanshun sect to understand the situation and see if you're telling the truth. Only then can I be at ease. Lu Yiqian smiled, but his attitude was very firm. Xiao Pinggan struggled in his heart for a while. Lu Yiqian had probably been hiding his strength all this time, and Xiao Pingon couldn't figure out what realm his cultivation had reached. He was so sure that he wasn't afraid of Xiao Pingon resisting. Xiao Pingon could only pinch his nose and swallow the soul-seizing goo back into his stomach. Ha ha, Brother Chui Li, you're really smart. Lu Yiqian suddenly laughed. In these few days, Brother Chui Li, you'd better not leave the Cloud Island within 100 miles. Once you leave, you might explode and die. Don't blame me for not warning you in advance. Also, if you feel a stomachache, come to the Spring Breeze restaurant in front of this street. That's because I have something to look for you. Well, Brother Chui Li, do as you please. I still need to earn money to earn money. As he spoke, Lu Yiqian waved his hand, and the illusion technique and Sister Mute instantly disappeared. He stood up, holding his fortune-telling signboard, and laughed at Xiao Pingon. A greedy and wretched smile appeared on his face again. Brother, you have to remember what I told you just now. That's the way to seek fortune and avoid disaster. If you introduce a friend, I'll give you a discount. Thank you for your advice, brother. Xiao Pingon smiled bitterly. Ha ha ha, I'm leaving. Lu Yiqian laughed loudly, put away the table and chair, and came to the street once again to brag and shout. Fortune-telling, I don't cheat anyone. If you find me, Lu Banxian, it'll only cost you 100 gold coins. Seeing Lu Yiqian's figure gradually disappear into the crowd, Xiao Pingon rubbed his face and sighed in his heart. He didn't expect that he would almost die in the hands of Lu Yiqian today. Fortunately, he had temporarily fooled him. If Lu Yiqian had cheated him out of his true identity just now, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Lu Yiqian was mysterious and unpredictable, cunning and ruthless. He didn't know who he was. This Lu Yiqian's name might even be fake. This god-slaying insect realm was really full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. The only thing that made Xiao Pingon feel a little relieved was that Lu Yiqian didn't seem to want to kill him, but had other plans. His life was not in danger for the time being. Moreover, Lu Yiqian was sure that he couldn't do anything about the soul-seizing venomous insect, which gave him a chance of survival. After standing on the street for a while, Xiao Pingon put on a dejected look, mixed into the crowd, and walked aimlessly on the street. After walking for a while, Xiao Pingon asked the people on the street about the hotels in the city, and then walked towards the east side of the city. It didn't take long for him to reach the east side of the city. There was a luxurious hotel in the city, built on a beach and reef, close to the sea. The courtyard of the hotel was also a standalone house, and there were places like secret cultivation rooms. Xiao Pingon paid the room fee for 3 days and chose a courtyard near the sea to settle down temporarily. In the living room of the villa, Xiao Pingon drank tea, listened to the sound of the waves outside, and closed his eyes. Almost at the same time, Xiao Pingon's boy of fortune had followed the masters of the Blood Demon Church to a courtyard on the mountain in the east side of the city. The members of the Blood Demon Church gathered here, and Boy of Fortune saw that there were hundreds of people in the main hall. The Lord of the Golden Moon Palace, who had a devilishly handsome face, was in the villa. When the 6 people from the Blood Demon sect returned to the villa, the Lord of the Golden Moon Palace was leaning against a soft couch. He was playing with a skull made of gold and precious stones in his hand. Beside him were 2 maids who were pouring wine for him and peeling grapes. Lord, we searched the city several times today, but the reflection mirror still didn't sense anything. We didn't find any trace of Xiao Pingon. We also heard that the Abyss Worm King attacked the Immortal City, and the Immortal City of the Wan Shun sect was destroyed by the Worm Clan. Many disciples of the Wan Shun sect escaped from the underground at night and returned to the Cloud Island and Ethereal Mountain. Oh, is that so? The Lord of the Golden Moon Palace suddenly sat up and squinted his eyes. From today onwards, keep a close eye on the Wan Shun sect. Just now, the Lord sent an order that the center of the heaven and earth anomaly of the birth of the Holy Master is in the Immortal Sea. That anomaly is related to Xiao Pingon. Around the Immortal Sea, the Wan Shun sect has the most realm pearls of the Holy Master. It is very likely that Xiao Pingon has already sneaked into the Wan Shun sect. According to the Lord's order, we have to find out the situation of all the disciples of the Wan Shun sect who have merged with the Holy Master in the immortal city. We can't miss any of them. The Lord will soon get rid of the Wolf Emperor and rush to the immortal sea. As long as Xia Pingan is still in the immortal sea, we will definitely find him. Boy of Fortune walked around the villa, and after finding nothing else, he disappeared in a flash. In the secret chamber, Xia Pingan suddenly opened his eyes. He felt that his mouth was a little dry, and there was a faint fear in his heart. He didn't expect that he would be exposed so quickly. Fortunately, he met those disciples of the Blood Demon Church today. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would still be in the dark. In the immortal sea, a storm had quietly gathered, and the new disciples of the Wan Shen sect had become the key targets of the Blood Demon Church to investigate him. According to the Blood Demon Church's practice, if Zhu Maqian came, he might become a turtle in a jar. He had underestimated the Blood Demon Church and Zhu Maqian too much before. He thought that he could fish in troubled waters after joining the Wan Shen sect, but he didn't expect that the crisis would come quietly. Chapter 483. Fortune-telling, honest to all. Find me, Liu Banxian, for only 100 gold coins. Liu Yiqian was still walking on the streets of the city, shouting. There was nothing unusual about him, and there was really a summoner who found Liu Yiqian to have his fortune told. Child of Fortune followed Liu Yiqian for a while and didn't find anything else, so he directly returned to the hotel where Xia Pingan was staying. As soon as Child of Fortune came back, Xia Pingan opened his eyes. Child of Fortune directly returned to the secret mandala. Liu Yiqian thought that he was infected with the soul seas goo and wasn't worried about him running away. His life and death were completely under his control, so he wasn't in a hurry. Perhaps he had other ways to inquire about Chui Li, Blood Demon Church. Liu Yiqian interesting. Xia Pingan rubbed his face and pondered for a while. His eyes flashed, and he directly entered the hotel's secret room. Xia Pingan, who came to the secret room, sat cross-legged on the stone bed and took out the somewhat damaged but still usable tortoiseshell 5 elements inverted 8 trigrams sword formation disc. He first protected the secret room. Then Xia Pingan closed his eyes and made a series of complicated doppelganger technique hand seals. The doppelganger secret technique of the Sacred Soul Palace in the spiritual realm wasn't a single secret technique. To be precise, the doppelganger secret technique was a combination of a series of secret techniques. For example, the soul power boundary and embryonic breathing technique were all parts of the doppelganger secret technique. Of course, the most important secret technique included was the technique of splitting and combining the spirit body and the physical body. When Xia Pingan was infected with the soul seas goo last time, he hadn't grasped the doppelganger secret technique. This time, he had already grasped the doppelganger secret technique. His entire person was different, and Xia Pingan had carefully studied the soul seas goo. The reason why the soul seas goo was so terrifying was that it was almost impossible to take it out of the possessed person once it entered the human body. It could easily make people want to die. That was because this thing would disappear after entering the human body. It was almost impossible to find it through dissection. The so-called soul seas goo was controlling the spirit body of the person. Once an ordinary summoner was infected with the soul seas goo, they could only wait for death. Unfortunately, Liu Yiqian encountered Xia Pingan. Just now, the reason why Xia Pingan swallowed the soul seizing goo was just a temporary measure, temporarily showing weakness to the enemy to confuse Liu Yizhu. With Xia Pingan's secret technique, he quickly saw the current state of the soul seas goo. At this moment, the soul-snatching goo had already turned into a spiritual body. Like a leech, it was entrenched and attached to the Tanzhong point on Xia Pingan's chest. Insects could have different forms of existence. For example, ordinary insects looked like 2 completely different creatures before and after they grew wings. Some insects could transform between animal and plant forms. This soul snatch goo could transform between a physical body and a spiritual body. Normal summoners, even if they were at the 8 or 9 sun realm, would be helpless against the parasites that were attached to their spirit bodies. After confirming the location of the soul C's goo, a brilliant golden light suddenly appeared on Xia Pingan, who was sitting cross-legged on the futon. In the golden light, a golden figure separated from Xia Pingan's body and stood up. The soul C's goo's shadow was attached to the chest of the golden figure. Then, the golden figure formed a soul power barrier seal. The spiritual body flashed, and the barrier appeared. The soul C's goo attached to the spiritual body immediately squirmed and felt that it was difficult to attach. Then, the spiritual body stretched out its hand and gently grabbed the soul C's goo. It easily took the soul C's goo off its chest and wrapped it in a ball of soul power. Then, the golden spiritual body merged with Xia Pingan's body again. Xia Pingan, who had his eyes closed, opened his eyes and gently opened his mouth. The soul C's goo wrapped in a ball of soul power, emitting a faint golden light, was spat out by Xia Pingan like a marble. The soul C's goo wrapped in soul power was still in a spiritual body state. To the soul C's goo, it thought that it was still attached to Xia Pingan's spiritual body and there was no abnormality. Holding the soul power ball, wrapped in soul C's goo, Xia Pingan dripped a drop of blood from his fingertip onto the ball. The ball immediately absorbed the drop of blood and took on a physical form. It turned blood red and looked like a blood amber. And in the blood amber was the soul C's goo that thought that it was attached to Xia Pingan's body. There was no abnormality with the soul C's goo. Similarly, as the owner of the soul C's goo, he absolutely could not find any abnormality. This blood amber containing the soul C's goo could not be stored in the space warehouse of the secret mandala. Because it was alive, it could only be carried around. Xia Pingan used 2 fingers to pick up the soul power blood amber and placed it in front of his eyes for a closer look. Within the blood amber, the soul C's goo in its soul form was clearly visible. It was like a weak caterpillar, but it also carried a terrifying aura that made one's heart turn cold. Alas, I didn't expect that I would have to change my body so soon. It seems that I can't stay in the undead sea any longer. I can't stay in the Wan Shin sect any longer. The realm pearl that Elder Jing prepared for me is really useful. Without the realm pearl of the transformation secret technique, I might not be able to survive for more than a few days in the god-slaying insect realm. Looking at the soul power blood amber in his hand, Xia Pingan sighed helplessly. Xia Pingan was a little reluctant to leave the Wan Shin sect. He had not discovered all the value of the Wan Shin sect. This was equivalent to interrupting all his previous plans. However, he had to leave because his merging with the realm pearl of the Sage Master had exposed his whereabouts. Zhu Motyin had already set his eyes on the Wan Shin sect, and had even guessed many things. Even if he could transform, it was too dangerous to stay in the Wan Shin sect. Zhu Motyin might come to find him at any time. Lu Yiqian could recognize his identity because he had been in contact with him before. He should have relied on some very rare special ability to recognize acquaintances, not the secret technique of transformation. Lu Yiqian's ability should only be discovered when he was close to him in space. If he looked at him from a distance, he would not be able to discover him. This was the case on the street just now. He only discovered the abnormality when he was close to him. This ability was a bit like the Black Dragons. As long as he did not get close to Lu Yiqian, that guy should not be able to discover his secret. After going through all the things that had happened in his mind, Xia Pingan thought for a moment. He put the soul power blood amber on the table next to him and began to use the secret technique of transformation again. As Xia Pingan's muscles and bones squirmed and changed, a moment later, Xia Pingan grew an inch taller. His skin was a little darker, his eyes were a little smaller, and his eyebrows were thick and black with a trace of killing intent. He had completely changed into a different person. Xia Pingan summoned Wang Zhaojun. Wang Zhaojun held a brand new set of black mage robes in her hands and helped Xia Pingan change his clothes in the secret room. She also helped Xia Pingan tidy up his appearance and hairstyle. In a moment, Xia Pingan had turned into an ordinary young man in his 20s. With a beauty helping him tidy up, It was indeed much more convenient than Xia Pingan doing it himself. Wang Zhaojun carefully helped Xia Pingan tidy up the collar of his mage robes and asked with a smile, "My lord's secret technique of transformation is really interesting. In the blink of an eye, you've become another person. I wonder what my lord's name is this time." Xia Pingan rubbed his face, and a name flashed through his mind. "Let's call him Luowen." After completing the transformation, Wang Zhaojun took her leave and returned to the secret mandala. Xia Pingan put the soul power blood amber in his pocket, then put away the array disc and walked out of the secret room. Once he reached the courtyard outside, Xia Pingan plucked a few leaves and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in the air, using an illusion technique to hide his figure. Xia Pingan didn't immediately leave. Instead, he flew toward the mountain villa where the Blood Demon Church's stronghold was located. When he was still 4 to 5 kilometers away from the mountain villa, Xia Pingan stopped in the air and used the one-leaf vision technique to completely hide his figure in the air. He then summoned the Sinking Star Assassin and had the Sinking Star Assassin take the soul power blood amber. It turned into a black smoke and fell from the sky, quickly stealthily moving toward the mountain villa where the Blood Demon Church was located. The mountain villa where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched was on guard, but the degree of security wasn't high. There were only 2 summoners of the Blood Demon Church pacing back and forth outside the mountain villa. For the Sinking Star Assassin, hiding was their best skill. Furthermore, Xia Pingan didn't want the Sinking Star Assassin to sneak into the mountain villa to do something earth-shattering. He only wanted the Sinking Star Assassin to sneak into the vicinity of the mountain villa to do something insignificant. Outside the mountain villa, there was a dense pine forest and a river. Carrying the soul power blood amber, the Sinking Star Assassin went against the flow of the river. Like an illusory shadow, it easily arrived outside the mountain villa. Under a tall 100-year-old pine near the wall of the mountain villa, it quietly dug a hole and buried the soul power blood amber underground. Then, it quickly returned. Lu Yiqian could roughly sense the location and area of the soul seize goo. Therefore, he only needed to hide the soul power blood amber near the mountain villa where the Blood Demon Church's stronghold was located. Then, Xia Pingan just waited to watch the show. Chui Li and the Blood Demon Church didn't have any interactions. The one who had interactions with the Blood Demon Church was Xia Pingan. Once Lu Yiqian discovered that the location of his soul seize goo was in a mountain villa where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched and Chui Li lost his freedom of movement, what would Lu Yiqian think? At that time, Lu Yiqian would instantly know that Chui Li was Xia Pingan and Xia Pingan was Chui Li. His initial guess was completely correct. When he was on the street, Chui Li was indeed hiding from the Blood Demon Church. It was just that he had been deceived. The opportunity to become a god slipped through his fingers just like that. Xia Pingan really wanted to see Lu Yiqian beat his chest and stamp his feet. The Demon God Sovereign's reward was that if he could sacrifice or kill Xia Pingan, then the person who killed Xia Pingan could directly become a god or condense an immortal body. Could Lu Yiqian refuse such a temptation? Xia Pingan didn't think so. Lu Yiqian probably had other thoughts when he stared at the Blood Demon Church. At that time, he would just watch as Lu Yiqian and the Blood Demon Church fought each other. He would just sit on the mountain and watch. Not long after, the Sinking Star Assassin returned. Xia Pingan put away the Sinking Star Assassin and once again released the Child of Fortune to stare at the mountain villa where the Blood Demon Church was hiding. He immediately flew far away and directly left the Cloud Island. He only stopped on a small island 100 miles away from the Cloud Island. This was about the furthest distance that the Child of Fortune could sense. Xia Pingan sat cross-legged on a mountain peak on that small island. He faced the moonlight, enjoyed the sea breeze, listened to the waves, drank wine, ate jerky, and waited for the show on the Cloud Island to begin. Chapter 484. This is the warrant for Chui Li's arrest issued by the Hall of the Undying City. It was sent to us a while ago, and according to the warrant, Chui Li was an outer disciple who had just joined the Undying City. He was hunting insectoids with two other outer disciples in the Abyss when they found a top-quality soul armament. In order to monopolize the soul armament, Chui Li killed them and stole the treasure before running away. His character was extremely vile, so the bounty on his head was 2 million gold coins. After he was placed on the wanted list, Chui Li ran away and disappeared, never showing his face again. Inside a dimly lit tavern, there was a bean-sized lamp on the table. A summoner wearing a gray cloak, hiding himself in the shadow of the lamp, placed a wanted poster that wasn't considered new on the table and handed it to Lu Yishu. There was a small wine pot and 2 wine cups in front of them. There were a few dishes on the table. There were only a few customers in the tavern. There were only a few customers drinking at the 2 tables near the entrance. Everyone used a mute enchantment, so outsiders couldn't hear what they were talking about. At this time, it was already late at night. It would be dawn in a few hours. There weren't many pedestrians on the street. Even the mermen who set up the stalls had returned to the sea. Sure enough, Lu Yishuan glanced at the contents of the warrant. It was exactly the same as what Chui Li said. It seemed that Chui Li didn't lie to him. Lu Yishuan nodded in satisfaction. He took out a small medicine bottle from his space equipment and handed it over. The man in a gray cloak took the medicine bottle, looked at the pills inside, and nodded. As a regular customer of our 10,000 treasure haul, I can also tell you a piece of news for free. The immortal city of the 10,000 gods sect was destroyed by the Abyss Worm King yesterday. It might not be long before the 10,000 gods sect's underground fortress in the immortal sea will withdraw. Several 9-sun realm powerhouses in the immortal sea will take action and won't allow the Abyss Worm King to come to the surface. 2 elders of the 10,000 gods sect are already rushing to the immortal sea. Lu Yishuan narrowed his eyes. Okay, thank you, I got it. The man in a gray cloak put away the bottle, then got up and left. He walked out the tavern's door and disappeared into the dark street outside in the blink of an eye. Only Lu Yiguan was left at the table. Lu Yiqian continued to drink by himself until he finished the wine. Only then did he leave a few gold coins on the table and walk out of the tavern. At this time, there were few pedestrians on the street, and Lu Yiqian didn't shout anymore. Although this was a city that didn't sleep at night, most summoners had the habit of resting at night. 2 million gold coins. That Chui Li's secret transformation technique is very useful. It's far more than just 2 million gold coins. Lu Yiqian muttered to himself as he walked on the street. Previously, he didn't completely believe Chui Li's words, but it didn't matter. Chui Li had already been hit by his soul-seizing goo. It was impossible for him to escape from his hands in the future. He could only become one of his chess pieces. Whether he lived or died was up to him. Chui Li's transformation secret technique came from a secret orbit realm pearl that no one had ever fused with before. His transformation ability was so powerful that even he couldn't see any flaws in it. It was said that no one had been able to successfully fuse with that secret orbit realm pearl for countless years. But that Chui Li had succeeded. This was too much of a coincidence. Therefore, that kid might not have told him the truth. That kid still had a lot of secrets. In the future, he could slowly squeeze out all the secrets and value from that kid. As for now, that kid's transformation secret technique is still very useful. Let me think. The young master of the Amorous Valley was plotted against by him back then and died an unnatural death. All these years, the Amorous Valley had been without a leader. If that kid Chui Li transformed into the young master of the Amorous Valley and returned to the Amorous Valley, would he be able to seize the Amorous Valley's assets? The Amorous Valley was guarding a 5-sun realm divine spring. Furthermore, the patriarch of the Dugu family in the heavenly bull continent, Dugu Xen, is crazy. After entering the Void secret realm, there has been no news of him. If that kid transformed into Dugu Xen, would he be able to obtain the secret treasury of the Dugu family? Lu Yiqian thought about all kinds of possibilities in his mind and couldn't help but reveal a smug smile on his face. The world laughed at him for being in dire straits, but who knew that he, Lu Yiqian, had always been in control of the universe and had countless chess pieces. Not to mention some insignificant gold coins, Lu Yiqian, would leave his footprint on the path to becoming a god in the future. While thinking this, Lu Yiqian arrived at Spring Wind Restaurant. Spring Wind Restaurant was a large inn and also a large restaurant. This was a gathering place for people from all walks of life in the city. Because the cost of living was relatively cheap, summoners who didn't have much money liked to stay in this kind of place where they could live and eat. 2 strings of red lanterns were hung at the entrance of Spring Wind Restaurant. In the middle of the night, there were still people eating and drinking inside Spring Wind Restaurant. From time to time, people would enter and leave the restaurant. Banxian Lu is here. You must earn a lot of money in the city today. Spring Wind Restaurant's shopkeeper couldn't help but tease Lu Yiqian when he saw him return. Lu Yiqian's expression changed in the blink of an eye. I'm ashamed. I only earned some money for the wine and drank it all into my stomach. Shopkeeper, do you want a divine? I'll give you a 30% discount. You only need to pay for my room for a few days. I won't do it. The shopkeeper hurriedly waved his hand. What a pity. Lu Yiqian shook his head and returned to his room. Once he returned to his room, Lu Yiqian poured himself a cup of tea and made a hand seal to activate the soul seize goo in Chui Li's stomach. In Lu Yiqian's view, once he activated it, Chui Li's abdominal pain would be unbearable. It wouldn't take long for him to rush to Spring Wind Restaurant to see him. In fact, he didn't want to explain anything to Chui Li. He purely wanted Chui Li to develop the habit of being respectful and obedient to him. Just like training an eagle. Only by letting Chui Li understand that his little life was in his hands at all times and obediently accept his fate would he be able to order him around in the future. This was the method of using the soul seize goo to control people. Lu Yiqian had long been familiar with it. After activating it for 2 minutes, Lu Yiqian stopped. He quietly drank his tea and waited. But time passed second by second. After a full half an hour, the tea on the table was finished, but Chui Li still hadn't arrived. Lu Yiqian's expression changed slightly. He closed his eyes and sensed the soul seize goo. It was still in his senses. It was only a few dozen miles away from him in the southeast. It wasn't far. What's going on? Could it be that I didn't activate the soul seize goo with enough strength? If it was an ordinary summoner, that would be enough to make them roll on the ground. Lu Yiqian's expression darkened. He continued to activate it for another minute, doubling the pain and giving Chui Li a splitting headache. Then he sat and waited. Another 20 minutes passed, but Chui Li still hadn't arrived. Lu Yiqian closed his eyes again and sensed with the soul seize goo. This time, Lu Yiqian's expression completely changed. The soul seize goo's location was the same as before. There was no change at all. What's going on? Lu Yiqian's expression was gloomy. He paced 2 rounds in the room with his hands behind his back. Finally, he opened the room's window and turned into a wisp of smoke. He directly floated out of the window and flew toward the place where he sensed the soul seize goo. On the way, he even used a secret technique to conceal his figure. A few dozen miles on the island was actually not far for him. Lu Yiqian sensed the location of the soul-seizing venomous worm as he flew in that direction. As he flew, Lu Yiqian's expression changed again. This was because the location of the soul-seizing venomous worm seemed to be rather close to the place where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched on the Cloud Island. He had been monitoring the whereabouts of the people from the Blood Demon Church previously, so he naturally knew where the people from the Blood Demon Church gathered. Perhaps this was a coincidence. Lu Yiqian comforted himself and continued flying forward. A few minutes later, standing in the sky 4,000 to 5,000 meters away from the villa occupied by the Blood Demon Church, Lu Yiqian was completely stunned, as if he had been struck by lightning. At this distance, he could already clearly feel that his soul seize goo was in the direction of the villa occupied by the Blood Demon Church. The positions of the two completely overlapped. What did this mean? Why would Chui Li come to the villa where the Blood Demon Church was? Furthermore, he didn't leave even after Lu Yiqian activated the soul seize goo and caused him so much pain that he wished he was dead. If Chui Li could move freely, he wouldn't have clenched his teeth and endured that kind of pain for no reason. Unless Chui Li couldn't move freely and his body was completely restricted. He couldn't move at all and couldn't leave the villa where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched. This was the only possibility. Then, the question was, why would the Blood Demon Church's people detain Chui Li for no reason? As Lu Yiqian pondered, his body suddenly shook violently. His eyes widened and emitted two terrifying rays of light as he stared at the villa where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched. Unless Chui Li was Xia Pingon. The Blood Demon Church's experts had discovered Xia Pingon and captured Xia Pingon. Recalling the scene where he saw Chui Li evading the Blood Demon Church's experts on the street, Lu Yiqian felt as if he had completely understood all of a sudden. His mind instantly quivered. Slap, you idiot. You were actually deceived by a brat and failed miserably. Lu Yiqian, who was extremely vexed, slapped himself heavily. When he looked at the villa where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched again, his eyes instantly became bloodshot and even his breathing became heavy. At this moment, Lu Yiqian was like a miser and a pauper looking at a lottery ticket that could win 100 million gold coins. He had originally bought it, but he had casually given it away and tossed it aside. The fact that the Soul Sea's goo could still sense it meant that Xia Pingon was still alive. Zhu Motyan had yet to arrive at Cloud Island. Those Blood Demon Church experts might be waiting for Zhu Motyan to arrive before handing Xia Pingon over to him. However, accidents could happen at any time during this period. Almost no summoner could resist the benefits of killing and sacrificing Xia Pingon. That was the temptation of becoming a god and forming an immortal body. As long as they sacrificed Xia Pingon, they would be able to surpass Zhu Motyan and become a god before him. They would form the divine will first. At that time, it would be hard to say who would be the patriarch. Those people guarding Xia Pingon could kill or sacrifice Xia Pingon at any time. The opportunity was right in front of him. The situation was extremely urgent. What should he do? Looking at the villa where the Blood Demon Church was entrenched in the distance, Lu Yiqian's expression became more and more malevolent and terrifying. His mind was filled with thoughts of becoming a god. The person overseeing this place was the Golden Moon Temple Lord, an 8th Sun Realm expert. He might not be able to win. However, if he delayed any longer, he might completely miss the opportunity in front of him. At this moment, the Golden Moon Temple Lord might already be preparing for the blood sacrifice ceremony for Xia Pingon. That was why he did not leave Cloud Island in time. Even if only a minute passed, the situation here might change fundamentally, causing him to miss this opportunity forever. There was only one chance. He had to go all out. Chapter 485. The members of the Blood Demon Church who were gathered in the villa, including Golden Moon Temple Master, did not expect to be struck by lightning all of a sudden. Lu Yiqian was too fast and too ruthless. Once he made up his mind, his figure flickered in and out of existence in the air. In a few flashes, he was already above the villa, instantly revealing himself. Who is it? In the sky above the manor, a Blood Demon Church's 6th Sun Realm expert who was on sentry duty suddenly noticed an uninvited guest in the sky and asked. In a place like the Cloud Island, experts were as common as clouds. There would occasionally be experts flying over the manor, so the sentry wasn't too nervous. However, in the next second, the 6th Sun Realm expert of the Blood Demon Church revealed a look of horror. This was because he saw 3 horizontal lines appear in the sky and directly press down with terrifying heavenly might. Of the 3 horizontal lines, the top 2 were connected as yang, while the bottom one was interrupted as yin. If Xia Pingon was here, he would know that it was a Sun hexagram. Lu Yiqian did not explain at all. His eyes were spitting fire as he gritted his teeth and stared at the entire villa with a ferocious expression. The moment he made his move, he had already used all his strength and did not leave any leeway. The cyan wind blew down from the sky. The Blood Demon Church expert on sentry duty did not even have a chance to resist. His clothes, flesh, and bones were like sand blown away by the wind, instantly weathering and turning into sand. The items in his spatial equipment also exploded. The gold coins, equipment, medicine bottles, and the like that exploded from his spatial equipment also turned into sand bit by bit in the gentle cyan wind. 8 suns rose directly from behind Lu Yiqian. The cyan wind was like layers of cyan gauze, instantly enveloping the entire villa of the Blood Demon Church. It was so tight that even an ant could not escape. The cyan wind began to become violent. In that violent wind, everything became extremely slow. What's going on? 7 or 8 sun realm experts of the Blood Demon Church jumped out of the villa, but their bodies froze in the air. When the cyan wind blew past, their bodies instantly turned into sand and were blown away. Another few 6 sun realm experts of the Blood Demon Church who flew out had their protective spells shattered and turned into sand in the wind. The cyan wind blew past several tall osmanthus trees in the villa, which also turned into sand and dissipated. When the cyan wind blew past the houses, roofs, tiles, and walls in the villa, everything turned into sand and dissipated. It was like a relic that had been weathered for thousands of years. The process seemed long, but it was actually very fast. It was only the blink of an eye from Lu Yiqian's time. Boom! Hey! Golden Temple Master. Seeing the cyan wind, his mind mines. Who are you? The face of the Lord of the Golden Moon Temple of the Blood Demon Church had already become extremely terrifying. His eyes were blood red, and scales had appeared on his originally handsome face. He looked abnormally hideous. When he opened his mouth, his voice boomed like a mad demon. The Golden Moon Temple Lord was furious. He saw that the experts of the Blood Demon Church in the villa had all turned into sand under Lu Yiqian's domain. In the domain of an 8 sun realm expert, the other 7 sun realm and 6 sun realm experts could only be ruthlessly crushed. The 6 sun realm experts of the Blood Demon Church disintegrated into sand in front of the Golden Moon Temple Master's eyes. Only a few 7 sun realm experts were still struggling to hold on. They were also on the verge of collapse, but it seemed like they could not hold on for much longer. To the experts of the Blood Demon Church in the villa, the situation before their eyes was like a group of people sitting at home and sleeping. Then, someone suddenly flew in and detonated the explosives on his body without saying a word, not giving them any time to react at all. Hand over Xia Pingon. Lu Yiqian roared in the air. At this time, Lu Yiqian did not look cautious at all. He was extremely domineering. His whole body was flashing with golden light, and his eyes were like lightning. Hearing Lu Yiqian's words, the Golden Moon Temple Master felt like he suddenly understood something. The guy in front of him was most likely Xia Pingon's accomplice. Even if he was not Xia Pingon's accomplice, he was still an enemy of the Blood Demon Church. He wanted to interfere and ruin the Golden Moon Temple Master's plan. Looking at the elites of the Blood Demon Church dying one by one under Lu Yiqian's domain, there was no room for negotiation in the face of such a mortal enemy. It was either you die or I live. The Golden Moon Temple Master was too lazy to talk nonsense. Instead, he roared die. As soon as he said that, the violent golden water swept up from the ground and spread toward the sky. The Golden Moon Temple Master's words had a different feeling in Lu Yiqian's ears. The Blood Demon Church was indeed unwilling to give up Xia Pingon. He could only go all out. A green gale blew past the golden water. The golden water dispersed and closed and dispersed again. It was difficult for the gale to disperse it. The golden water spread toward Lu Yiqian. In the midst of the gale, water spouts appeared above the golden water. 2 completely different forces were fighting fiercely, and it was difficult to distinguish the winner. The domain spaces of the 2 8 sun realm experts collided fiercely in the villa. The Golden Moon Palace Lord was also forced to do so. Facing Lu Yiqian's domain space, he could only display his own domain space to resist. Other means were useless. If he hesitated and did not go all out, he would be the one to die. With the collision of the two powerful martial artist domains, the remaining Blood Demon Church experts in the villa were in a miserable state. Originally, these people were already having a hard time dealing with the domain of an 8th-Sun realm martial artist, let alone two of them. When the two giant elephants were wrestling, the short animals on the ground were undoubtedly the most miserable. When the giant elephants stepped on them, they were trampled to death. No, Palace Master. An old man of the Seven Suns realm from the Blood Demon Church screamed at the Palace Master of the Golden Moon Palace when he saw the golden light protecting him crumble. His upper body was blown by the green wind and turned into sand in the blink of an eye. His lower body was swept by the golden water and disappeared in the blink of an eye like melted ice. The Golden Moon Temple Master did not care so much. The dead old man was a capable altar master under him. However, if he hesitated at this time, he would be the one to die. Between his own life and the lives of others, the Golden Moon Temple Master could only choose to save his own life first. Even a 7-Sun realm expert could not withstand the collision of the two domains, let alone the other 6-Sun realm experts of the Blood Demon Church. Wherever the waterspouts went, all the 6-Sun realm and 7-Sun realm experts of the Blood Demon Church in the villa were killed in an instant. Not a single one survived. Seeing this, the Golden Moon Temple Master's eyes were bloodshot. The first batch of experts he brought to the Undying Sea was completely wiped out here. If Zumatya knew that this was a heavy punishment, he would definitely suffer. He would not be able to explain himself if he did not kill this person in front of him to atone for his crime. As for Lu Yiqian, seeing the experts of the Blood Demon Church in the villa being wiped out in the collision between the two, he was even more certain that the Golden Moon Temple Master was determined to use the blood sacrifice to take Xia Pingon for himself. The deaths of these people of the Blood Demon Church might be exactly what the Golden Moon Temple Master wanted. The opportunity to become a god was right in front of him. He could not let the Golden Moon Temple Master have his way. Become a god, become a god. Lu Yiqian's mind was filled with thoughts of becoming a god. Even if he had to settle for the second best, even if Xia Pingon had to die, he could only die by his own hands. Only by killing him could he obtain the body of immortality. Hand over Xia Pingon. Lu Yiqian roared again. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. The blazing sun behind him suddenly turned blood red and fell toward the Golden Moon Temple Master, as if the sky was falling. Crazy. The Golden Moon Temple Master's expression also changed. He was using the origin blood to stimulate the power of the 8 suns in the domain. The Golden Moon Temple Master also bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the blazing sun behind him. The two blazing suns collided in the domain space. In just a moment, Lu Yiqian and the Golden Moon Temple Master bled from their 7 orifices at the same time. Their faces were terrifying and mournful like ghosts. Chapter 486. Strong, very strong, too strong. This was how Xia Pingon felt about the battle between Lu Yiqian and the Golden Moon Temple Master. Although Xia Pingon was 100 miles away from the battlefield, he could see the entire battle through Boy of Blessings. It was as if he was observing it from a close distance. This was the first time Xia Pingon had seen an 8-Sun realm expert releasing their domain spaces at such a close distance. Xia Pingon saw with his own eyes that the 6-Sun realm Yiqian elites of the Blood Demon Church were turned into flying sand and blood foam, dissipating bit by bit in front of his eyes. The Blood Demon Church definitely suffered a great loss in this battle. If they weren't in the god-slaying bug world, any one of the Blood Demon Church's elite experts above the 6-Sun realm would be an expert and backbone of an area. However, at this moment, due to the absolute difference in strength, they were caught off guard by Lu Yiqian's surprise attack and were directly crushed by his domain. Lu Yiqian's ruthlessness was beyond Xia Pingon's expectations. Looking at Lu Yiqian's ferocious and ashen face, Xia Pingon knew that this was Lu Yiqian's true face. In order to become stronger, in order to become a god, he could do anything, trample on all the rules of the world, and challenge all the giants. This kind of ruthlessness was also the temperament of many experts. The three horizontal lines that appeared above Lu Yiqian's head were a Sun hexagram, which represented wind. The three horizontal lines above the Golden Moon Temple Master's head were a Dui hexagram, which represented water. The battle between Lu Yiqian and the Golden Moon Temple Master was very fierce. Outsiders might not be able to see the knack of it, but Xiao Pingan's brain was working quickly as he watched, calculating and judging the situation on the battlefield. Lu Yiqian and the Golden Moon Temple Master seemed to be equal in strength, but Xiao Pingan felt that Lu Yiqian might lose. This was because Xiao Pingan judged that Lu Yiqian's domain space would be completely restrained by the Golden Moon Temple Master's domain space. The Sun hexagram represented wind. In terms of the 5 elements, wind belonged to wood. The Dui hexagram represented pond, but it belonged to gold. Gold restrained wood. Golden Moon Temple Master's field domain just happened to restrain Lu Yiqian's field domain. Lu Yiqian probably did not know that Golden Moon Temple Master's domain could completely restrain him. If the battle situation was unfavorable, the Sun hexagram's position pointed to the southeast, and the favorable position of the domain space produced by the Sun hexagram was southeast. There was a high probability that Lu Yiqian would escape from the southeast of the Cloud Island, which was the most favorable position for him. Although the battle was not over yet, as soon as Xiao Pingan's brain completed such a calculation and judgment, he instantly recalled Boy of Fortune. Then he flew up from the island. After becoming invisible, he directly exerted all his strength and flew rapidly toward the southeast. Boy of Fortune plunged into the sea and transmitted the terrain underwater to Xiao Pingan. If Lu Yiqian was defeated and escaped from the southeast, he would definitely not expose his whereabouts and target in the air. Eventually, he would choose an easy place to hide in the sea to avoid the possible revenge and pursuit of the Blood Demon Church. Meng Qi would observe the situation and set up an ambush in the southeast in advance to see if he could catch Lu Yiqian, this big fish. In terms of danger, Lu Yiqian was now more of a threat to him than the Golden Moon Temple Master. The celestial device of the Blood Demon Church's reflection mirror could no longer lock onto his whereabouts, but Lu Yiqian could recognize him. This guy was too dangerous. Since he had schemed against him, he could not blame him for being ruthless. Half an hour later, boom, in the domain, the 6th time the scorching sun entangled and collided, the violent divine power swept through the domain space of the two like a burning hurricane. The skin on Lu Yiqian's body began to crack, and blood began to spurt out of the 36,000 pores all over his body. He looked extremely miserable, like a person who had been fished out of a pool of blood. Many of his meridians and bones were broken. Compared to Lu Yiqian, the Golden Moon Temple Master looked very miserable. He spat out a mouthful of old blood again, and half of his hair turned gray. He was almost bald, but he was not as terrible as Lu Yiqian. At this moment, the whole villa had been razed to the ground, with not even a blade of grass growing. The domain of the Great Golden Lake behind Golden Moon Temple Master was growing larger and larger, gushing out from the ground. A huge golden vortex was forming in the domain, completely suppressing the cyan gale brought by Lu Yiqian's Sun trigram. The cyan gale was being swallowed and absorbed by the rotating Great Golden Lake. The Great Golden Lake was fluctuating, completely absorbing the cyan gale. The Great Golden Lake was spreading, and the cyan space was getting smaller and smaller. The whirling tornado was squeezing toward Lu Yiqian, and most of the aftermath of the collision of the two scorching suns surged toward Lu Yiqian. The domain of the two grew larger and larger, gradually exceeding the range of the mountain villa. The whole mountain was completely razed to the ground, and it was still spreading out of the mountain villa. The forest outside the mountain villa melted completely in the blink of an eye in the domain of the DUI hexagram. Suddenly, Lu Yiqian's face changed, because at this moment, he felt the last wail of his soul-seizing venomous insect before it died, and then the connection between him and the venomous insect completely disappeared. The Golden Moon Temple Master had killed Xiao Pingan. Xiao Pingon might be in the secret underground chamber of the mountain villa and within the domain of the Golden Moon Temple Master. But just now his soul-seizing venomous insect had died. What did this mean? It meant that Xiao Pingon was also dead, and the Golden Moon Temple Master might have used a secret method to complete the blood sacrifice, or he might have simply killed Xiao Pingon, making all his efforts in vain. In fact, the Golden Moon Temple Master did not know what had happened, nor did he know the thoughts flashing through Lu Yiqian's mind at this moment. The soul-seizing venomous insect had died, but the venomous insect underground outside the mountain villa could not withstand the impact of the domain of the two, and suddenly turned into dregs. Naturally, it was dead, and nothing was left. Lu Yiqian flew into a rage out of humiliation. He was so angry and anxious that he spat out a mouthful of blood again. The result of his falling out with the Blood Demon Church was actually helping the Golden Moon Temple Master in front of him. If the Golden Moon Temple Master condensed his divine chakra and became a god or obtained an immortal body, how could he survive? Go to hell. Lu Yiqian's bloody eyes widened in anger. With a move of his hand, a purple-red oval sphere appeared in his hand. The sphere flashed with lightning and carried a terrifying aura that could destroy everything. Divine Thunder of Void. The Golden Moon Temple Master was shocked and angry. He had seen a lot of lunatics, but it was the first time he had seen a lunatic like this guy in front of him. This guy had inexplicably come here today, crushed him with his domain without saying anything, and demanded him to hand over Xiao Pingon. He had risked his life and killed all the elites of the Blood Demon Church that he had brought with him. At this moment, he even took out the Divine Thunder of Void. Do you think you're the only one who has it? The Golden Moon Temple Master roared and also took out a Divine Thunder of Void in his hand. Only the Divine Thunder of Void could resist the Divine Thunder of Void. In the hands of an expert, the direction of release of the violent power of the Divine Thunder of Void could be controlled to a certain extent. At this time, Xiao Pingon had already flown hundreds of kilometers away. However, the terrifying aura that flashed behind him still made Xiao Pingon turn his head and look in the direction of the Cloud Island. In the direction of the Cloud Island, the sky suddenly lit up. The violent aura of divine power suddenly burst out. A ball of fire mixed with thousands of terrifying lightning bolts that lit up the whole sky appeared over the island. At first, it was a line. Then in the next second, like a big blood-red umbrella suddenly opening up, it stretched for dozens of miles in the sky. It lit up the world in an instant. The fire and lightning even made the sea water stand out. The movement startled Xiao Pingon. In the sky above the Cloud Island, a blood-red eye appeared in front of the Golden Moon Temple Master. The blood-red eye was like a black hole, sucking in most of the power of the Divine Thunder of Void that was rushing toward him. However, the Golden Moon Temple Master was still affected by the terrifying power of Lu Yiqian's Divine Thunder of Void. One of his hands and feet were gone, half of his body was broken, and pale bones were exposed on his wickedly handsome face. Lu Yiqian did not have it easy either. A broken golden shield stood in front of him. At this moment, there was no complete skin on Lu Yiqian's body. A small half of his body was also almost gone. The remaining half of his body that was exposed had been completely carbonized. As Lu Yiqian moved, the golden shield in front of him instantly turned into fine powder and dissipated. The carbonized skin on his body also shattered and fell from the sky, revealing the horrifying mangled flesh underneath Lu Yiqian's skin. His broken bones, burned muscles, and bleeding organs were all clearly visible. His entire body was badly mangled, and a faintly discernible ball of lightning was still lingering around his body with sizzling sounds. Lu Yiqian did not say anything. He glared at the Golden Moon Temple Master and turned into a black shadow, flying toward the southeast and disappearing in the blink of an eye. The Golden Moon Temple Master was also seriously injured. Looking in the direction where Lu Yiqian left, he did not chase after him. Instead, he gritted his teeth and also turned into a blood-red light, flying toward the west and disappearing in the blink of an eye. The Golden Moon Temple Master had never been afraid of anyone, but today, looking at Lu Yiqian who was like a madman, he felt a little scared for the first time. Anyone would be afraid of a madman who inexplicably used his realm and divine thunder of void to fight with others. Until now, the Golden Moon Temple Master still did not know the reason for tonight's deadly battle. On the ground, the whole villa had disappeared. Half of a mountain had disappeared. The fire and lightning in the sky lasted for a few minutes before slowly dissipating. The summoners on the island were all stunned and had a lingering fear. They had no idea what had happened tonight and why such an expert would fight with his life on the line. Xiao Pingon dived to the bottom of the sea from the sky. This place was 700 to 800 kilometers away from the Cloud Island. There was a huge underwater mountain range at the bottom of the sea. There were deep valleys, cliffs, pitch-black trenches, and densely packed underwater plants everywhere. If you want to hide, this would be a very suitable place. Xiao Pingon glanced over the environment here. In the blink of an eye, he had already dived into an oceanic trench. After searching the oceanic trench for a short while, he picked a leaf of flowers and grasses in the oceanic trench. After that, he gradually disappeared in the water without any aura left. In less than an hour, there was an undercurrent in the sea. The waves surged slightly, and Lu Yiqian, dragging his skeleton-like body, finally appeared in the water. Almost as soon as Lu Yiqian appeared, Boy of Fortune went to him and followed beside him. Chapter 487. Lu Yiqian's body was surrounded by a water shield at this moment. He looked like a skeleton pulled out from a fire scene, looking exceptionally miserable. He glanced at the surrounding sea and swam towards an underwater valley with all his might. His body was swaying, and the two water shields protecting him were compressed to the limit. They were somewhat unstable, and his whole body seemed like it would fall apart at any time. The valley wasn't very deep, and there were even deeper trenches around it. Towering underwater mountains were everywhere around the valley, and the underwater plants floating in the water made the underwater valley look very hidden. Suddenly, a grayish-white shark more than 10 meters long drilled out of a large patch of seaweed and rushed towards Lu Yiqian with ferocious teeth and a fierce gaze. Lu Yiqian's body was badly mutilated. Although he was isolated by the water shield, a trace of his blood qi still seemed to have seeped into the water and attracted the attention of the predators in the sea. He was actually treated as prey by a shark, and even this unremarkable beast dared to bare its teeth at him at this moment. "Beast, you also dare to court death." Lu Yiqian cursed in exasperation. He raised his hand and shot an icicle at the shark. But it was unknown whether the shark was too agile in the sea or Lu Yiqian's mind and divine power were somewhat lacking, but he lost his aim. The icicle was originally going to penetrate the shark's head and body, but in the end, it only brushed past the shark's tail, leaving a 2-chi-long gash on the shark's tail. The shark was injured and became even more violent. It bared its sharp teeth and bit towards Lu Yiqian. Lu Yiqian clenched his teeth and dodged the shark's attack. When the shark opened its mouth and rushed towards him for the second time, he shot a second icicle and pierced the shark's mouth. The shark's mouth and body were pierced, and it slowly sank into the sea with blood gushing out. Lu Yiqian panted and quickly left. After a while, he found a cave with a shoal of fish swimming in the mountain range at the bottom of the sea. The cave was more than a meter tall and was hidden behind a patch of rocks and seaweed. He swam directly into the cave. After entering the cave for 100 meters, the entrance of the cave extended upwards. After extending for another 100 meters, the space inside the cave suddenly widened and turned into a slightly rugged, gourd-shaped cave. There was nothing else in this cave except for some rocks and a few glowing fish at the bottom of the sea. Lu Yiqian let out a sigh of relief at once. He then took out a bead flickering with blue light from his space teleportation equipment. The moment he took out the bead, the water and the small fishes in the mountain cave were all pushed out of the mountain cave by an invisible force. The entire mountain cave became dry at once. Even the stones were dry. The faint blue light covered the space of dozens of meters in the mountain cave. Although there was seawater outside the space, the seawater couldn't pour in. Lu Yiqian placed the water-repelling bead on a rock in the cave, and then took out a bronze formation plate and placed it at the entrance of the cave. After activating it, the whole cave suddenly changed. A misty fog covered the seawater outside, and a thick wall appeared around the cave. After this, the underground cave became the most secretive secret chamber. After doing all this, Lu Yiqian spat out a mouthful of blood that he had been holding back in his throat. He sat cross-legged on a clean rock in the cave and gasped. He didn't even have time to wipe the blood from the corners of his mouth. He took out a few pills from his spatial equipment and swallowed them. Then he closed his eyes and entered a state of meditation, slowly waiting for his body to recover. Lu Yiqian had been seriously injured in the battle with Golden Moon Temple Master. Although he hadn't died, his body and secret mandala were on the verge of collapse, especially at the last moment. When Lu Yiqian took out the Void Divine Thunder, he didn't expect Golden Moon Temple Master to also take out a Void Divine Thunder. Both of them were seriously injured at the same time. If his body could still hold on, he would have run a little further before stopping. But now, this was his best choice. The pills he took were indeed useful. In just a moment, the skin on Lu Yiqian's broken body began to regenerate little by little. The wounds that were bursting with blood also stopped bleeding. Only 10 minutes later, Xia Pinggan appeared outside the cave where Lu Yiqian was hiding. Previously, Xia Pinggan was still a little worried about Lu Yiqian's current battle strength. But when Lu Yiqian killed the shark, he revealed his true strength. Lu Yiqian probably couldn't even display 1% of the strength of an 8th Sun Realm expert. He was seriously injured and weak. Now was the best time to kill him while he was sick. This valley was chosen by Lu Yiqian. This guy was still so cunning. According to ordinary people's thinking, even if he escaped to this place to hide, the nearby trenches would be the best place to hide. But he did the opposite. He found a cave in an underwater mountain range and hid in a place that wasn't as deep and hidden as the trenches. If someone really came here to find him, it would be even harder to find him here. Xia Pinggan entered the cave and quickly swam to the cave where Lu Yiqian was hiding. The glowing fish swam around in the water like an invisible wall that separated the inside from the seawater. Behind the wall was a rolling fog that prevented people from seeing the situation inside. Even if an ordinary summoner entered here and saw the strange scene in front of them, they probably wouldn't dare to barge in rashly. However, Xia Pinggan did not have any misgivings as he stepped into the mist. In just a blink of an eye, everything in front of Xia Pinggan's eyes changed completely. Above his head were huge and sharp icicles. Thousands of icicles hung down like sharp swords that would fall at any time. It was a daunting sight. On the ground was a raging sea of fire. Ice and fire blended here. Between the fire and ice, there was a thick, rolling fog. This was the situation in Lu Yiqian's disc array. Xia Pinggan entered the array and watched with narrowed eyes. He released his perception and formed hand seals with both hands, quickly calculating. This was the great ice and fire maze array. Xia Pinggan stepped toward the life gate. The icicles in the sky and the burning flames on the ground instantly approached. Something was wrong. As the array changed, Xia Pinggan immediately discovered the changes to the checkpoints and array eyes on the array disc. The array disc had even reversed the 7 absolutes and sealed the gate of life. Life was death, and death was life. With the addition of the maze track, the killing intent was unfathomable. If someone who knew a little about arrays came in, they would have fallen straight into the pit. More importantly, this array was divided into 2 layers. The last layer was the foundation of the 8 checkpoints golden lock, which reversed the life gate and death gate. If someone else came here, even if they knew about arrays, they would probably be trapped here. Unfortunately, this array met Xia Pinggan, the outstanding youth that Mr. Wulong appreciated, the successor of Kunlun Array Mechanisms Collection. Xia Pinggan closed his eyes. A few minutes later, Xia Pinggan opened his eyes again with a smile on his face. For an array master, breaking arrays and constructing array discs were both a kind of pleasure. When you were breaking an array, you would have already learned the structure of the other party's array disk in your mind. The array master who created this array disk could be considered a top expert. However, he could still understand and break the yin and yang changes of this array disk. Then, Xiaopinggan stepped into the raging flames beside him. An icicle above his head suddenly fell down, but stopped 3 feet above Xiaopinggan's head. The raging flames that swept over also seemed to have met their nemesis. When Xiaopinggan stepped out, the flames disappeared where his foot landed. Xiaopinggan walked out of the array as if he was taking a stroll. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the flames, unharmed. A few minutes later, Xiaopinggan quickly stepped out of the array and appeared in the cave. Lu Yiqian was still sitting cross-legged on the ground like a vegetable. Lu Yiqian would never have thought that someone would silently break into the cave he was hiding in such a short time. The moment Xiaopinggan stepped out, Xiaopinggan made his move. Xiaopinggan pointed at Lu Yiqian and a bolt of lightning struck Lu Yiqian's head. Lu Yiqian's body was burning with electricity. The part of his skin that had just healed was carbonized again. His entire body was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. He screamed miserably and blood spurted out of his mouth as if his intestines had been pierced. The divine power core that had just condensed in the secret mandala completely collapsed. The next second, Lu Yiqian's body was bound by demonic vines that emerged from the ground. Lu Yiqian finally opened his eyes. He didn't see anything. He only saw a summoned giant leaping up in the air and facing him with its butt. It sat down like a mountain. The giant's huge buttocks smashed down on his head and body like 2 doors. But F*CK. Lu Yiqian didn't even have time to curse. Boom! Lu Yiqian was directly smashed into the ground by the giant's butt. His entire body was embedded in the rocks on the ground. He spat out blood, and his face was sunken. The bones in his body that had just healed were all broken again. He completely fainted and lay on the ground like a pile of mud, unable to move anymore. The giant's palm grabbed Lu Yiqian's head. As long as it exerted a little force, it seemed that Lu Yiqian's head would be twisted off. Xiaopinggan calmly walked over. Looking at the unconscious Lu Yiqian and the blood all over the ground, he frowned slightly and said, "So ugly." At this moment, Lu Yiqian no longer looked like a human. Not a single inch of his skin was intact, and his head was bald without a single strand of hair. He no longer looked like an immortal. He looked like a monkey who had just escaped from a fire in a slaughterhouse after losing all his hair. An 8th-Sun Realm expert is quite lucky. He actually didn't die. Xiaopinggan touched Lu Yiqian's nose and found that this guy was actually still alive despite being so heavily injured. Isn't it a bit of a waste to kill him like this? Xiaopinggan stroked his chin and pondered. Looking at the unconscious Lu Yiqian, Xiaopinggan's gaze suddenly became strange and dangerous. A strange smile appeared on his face. A monkey, huh? Xiaopinggan's voice sounded in the cave, followed by a low chuckle. Chapter 488. It was unknown when Lu Yiqian woke up. He opened his eyes and felt a splitting headache, just like an ordinary person who was drunk. Light and shadow swayed in front of his eyes. It seemed that he was still in the cave at the bottom of the sea. The blue light and shadow of the water-dispelling bead made everything hazy. Then Lu Yiqian saw a strange man squatting on the ground in front of him. That man had his back to him, but that back was extremely unfamiliar to Lu Yiqian. Lu Yiqian was sure that he had never seen that man before. More importantly, that man was holding the top-quality soul tool that he plundered from Xiaopinggan. That man was muttering to himself while holding the soul tool. Ha! It finally returned to its rightful owner. Why doesn't this guy have a single realm bead on him? On the ground, in addition to the soul tool, there are also the things in his secret mandala space equipment. Millions of gold coins, a saint tool embryo, some pills, a large number of insect crystals, battle dolls, formation discs, and all kinds of strange things. He had almost emptied his secret mandala space equipment. The things in his secret mandala space equipment were taken out by someone, Lu Yiqian was shocked. Seeing that man's back facing him, Lu Yiqian gritted his teeth and wanted to cast a spell to sneak attack him from behind. But when he tried to sense it, he found that he could no longer sense the existence of his secret mandala. Just this alone made Lu Yiqian's soul leave his body. Seeing that man putting the things that should belong to him into his space equipment without any defense, Lu Yiqian gritted his teeth and his eyes showed a fierce side. He groped around on the ground and finally touched a sharp stone with edges and corners. Just as he was about to pick it up, Lu Yiqian found that he couldn't reach it. "What's going on?" Lu Yiqian turned his head to look at his hand. With this look, Lu Yiqian's hair stood on end, and all the hair on his body stood on end. What he saw wasn't a human hand, but an animal's hand, slender, thin, and hairless, just like a monkey's hand. Lu Yiqian moved his fingers, and the hand he saw also moved its fingers. Lu Yiqian raised both hands in front of him and moved them again. These weren't his hands. They were clearly the monkey's hands. Then, Lu Yiqian couldn't help but scream, "Ah!" However, he realized that there was no sound coming from his throat. Instead, he let out a monkey's cry. GG. Lu Yiqian felt that his head was about to explode. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted again. Xiao Pingan turned his head and glanced at the unconscious Lu Yishuang, who had turned into a monkey. He continued to store the items that Lu Yishuang had dropped into his spatial warehouse. The shape-sealing technique unlocked the ability of the shape-sealing monkey, which he had fused with a monkey's crown realm pearl some time ago, happened to be used on Lu Yiqian. After being turned into a monkey by Xiao Pingan, Lu Yiqian's connection with the secret mandala was completely severed. Therefore, the items in his spatial equipment had also burst out, filling up almost half of the cave. However, although there were a lot of items, and some of them seemed very precious, there wasn't the realm pearl that Xiao Pingan needed the most at the moment. This disappointed Xiao Pingan. After storing the items that Lu Yiqian had dropped, Xiao Pingan directly took out a small beast cage from his spatial warehouse. Then he used 2 fingers to pinch the unconscious Lu Yiqian's neck and threw him into the beast cage. Carrying the beast cage, putting away the water-dispelling pearl in the cave, and also putting away Lu Yijuai's formation plate. The next second, the turbulent seawater poured into the cave again. Xiao Pingan used a water shield to protect himself and the beast cage in his hand. Like a fish, he quickly swam out of the cave. He couldn't stay in this place for too long. If the Blood Demon Church really sent experts to hunt him down, or if Zhu Matian appeared, it would be troublesome. Therefore, he had to change locations first. Carrying the beast cage, Xiao Pingan quickly flew towards the surface of the sea. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the water surface and arrived in the sky. He directly changed direction and flew towards the east. In fact, Xiao Pingan didn't know where he was going now. He just wanted to leave Cloud Island first. He couldn't stay in the Undying Sea any longer. The fusing of the Saint Master Realm Pearl had caused too much of a commotion. Zhu Matian already knew that he was hiding in the Undying Sea. Moreover, it was possible that he had obtained the Realm Pearl after joining the 10,000 Gods sect. The 10,000 Gods sect had already been exposed and was targeted by Zhu Matian. Therefore, all his plans to join the 10,000 Gods sect were ruined. From the time he woke up in the Undying City to the time he met Lu Yiqian, a series of unforeseen events had happened in less than 2 days. Xiao Pingan was a little overwhelmed. He could only take one step at a time. A few hours later, the sky was bright. Xiao Pingan had already flown more than 2,000 miles. The sun rose from the horizon and lit up the vast sea with a golden light. This was a beautiful sunrise on the sea. Xiao Pingan hadn't seen it for a long time. He flew towards the sun in the sky. Chirp, chirp. Lu Yiqian finally woke up in the cage again. Seeing that he was locked in the cage, Lu Yiqian kept screaming in the cage. He used his thin and weak hands to touch his body and face. His face was lifeless and frightened. Then, he pulled the iron bars of the cage and screamed. Xiao Pingan coldly glanced at Lu Yiqian and said, "Lu Yiqian, you're lucky to have survived. Right now, you're just a monkey that I'm raising. If you keep shouting and make me annoyed, I'll throw you in the sea to feed the fish. Do you believe me? Lu Yiqian in the cage understood, and his ear-piercing screams came to an abrupt end. The world was finally peaceful. Xiaopinggan didn't feel like saying anything. He would let Lu Yiqian slowly adapt to his new identity first. In the sky, Xiaopinggan could occasionally see summoners flying out of the sea, or summoners flying in the sky. Xiaopinggan used illusion to conceal himself and only cared about flying. On the sea, islands and reefs of various sizes could be seen from time to time. Some islands and reefs were desolate, while some islands and reefs had obvious traces of man-made buildings and formations, indicating that these islands already had an owner. Xiaopinggan flew far away. From the moment the sun rose to the moment the sun set on the sea level behind him, he had used up a lot of his divine power. He was afraid that after flying for 7,000 to 8,000 miles, a desolate island with a radius of a few dozen kilometers appeared in front of him in the afterglow of the setting sun. The island was covered in pitch-black volcanic rocks and surrounded by dark green seawater. In the seawater, submerged reefs were faintly discernible. On the beach and submerged reefs of the island, huge conch shells were washed to the beach by the waves. There were even more fragments of those conch shells. Countless fragments of conch shells extended over 100 meters on the beach and were several meters thick. How big were those conch shells? The smallest one was about 10 meters high. After being washed to the island, they looked like huts on the beach. This place seemed to be the graveyard of these huge conch shells. There was nobody around this island. The view was bright. There seemed to be no eye-catching existence in the nearby sea area. At the sight of this desolate island, Xiaopinggan's heart raced as he told himself, "That's it." Closely after that, he descended from the sky. After flying around the island for a while, Xiaopinggan found that there was no good place to settle down. Most of those huge conch shells washed to the beach had been broken. With this discovery, Xiaopinggan directly flew into the water in the periphery of this island. The moment he entered the water, he saw another scene. There were many more huge conch shells in the water than those on the shore. They were almost everywhere. Huge conch shells could be seen everywhere in the sea. They were scattered on the soft beach at the bottom of the sea or among the coral reefs. After a short while, Xiaopinggan found a huge conch shell among the coral reefs at the depth of hundreds of meters. The conch shell was white and was more than 30 meters tall. It was like a tower quietly standing on a piece of coral. Being stuck by the coral, Xiaopinggan drilled in from the bottom of the conch shell. He found that the inside of the conch shell was abnormally spacious and very clean. The passage inside the conch shell spiraled upwards like a spiral staircase. Staying in the conch shell for a period of time was definitely not a problem, since it was hidden and quiet. Chapter 489. Xiaopinggan took out the water-repelling bead. Wherever the blue brilliance reached, the seawater in the conch shell would be pushed away by an invisible force and be discharged from the shell. All of a sudden, the inside of the conch shell became clean and bright. Haha, Lu Yiqian, your water-dispelling pearl is quite useful. This pearl could be said to be a treasure for hiding at the bottom of the sea. Xiaopinggan said, then placed the cage containing Lu Yiqian to the side. Gigi. Lu Yiqian turned over in the cage and seemed to have understood his identity at this moment. Lu Yiqian wanted to say something, but Xiaopinggan didn't want to listen to his nonsense at this moment and let him stay in the cage. There was no air underwater, neither was there in the conch shell. However, the magic of the water-repelling bead was that when it discharged the seawater, the oxygen in the water was retained by the water-repelling bead. The place where the energy barrier of the water-repelling bead was in contact with the seawater was like an invisible membrane. That membrane filtered the air in the seawater, allowing people to breathe inside. It was the first time that Xiaopinggan used the water-repelling bead, so he wasn't familiar with its characteristics. He even released the Boy of Fortune to take a look. The Boy of Fortune flew to the outside of the huge conch shell and circled around it. He found that the huge conch shell didn't look abnormal from the outside. He couldn't see the faint blue light inside, and the seawater outside the conch shell wasn't discharged. The range of the energy field of the water-repelling bead was inside the conch shell and was restricted by the space structure inside the conch shell. This made Xia Pingan feel relieved at once. In this way, such a conch shell hiding in the coral reef at the bottom of the sea was completely inconspicuous. Then, Xia Pingan took out Lu Yiqian's formation plate and directly activated it in the conch shell. With the activation of the formation plate, the inside of the conch shell suddenly became a secret room, which ensured its safety. Even if an expert came to make trouble, he would be trapped in the formation. Looking at the conch shell in front of him, Xia Pingan sighed with emotion. This is really a doubt field inside a conch shell. Yes, this huge conch would be Xia Pingan's Taoist field and residence for a period of time. This place was far away from the uproar and disputes in the undead ocean. Additionally, nobody would disturb him. It was the right place for Xia Pingan to cultivate for a period of time. At least, he had to deal with the matter of his substitute first. It had been almost 3 days since he left Earth. Xia Pingan did not know the situation of his doppelganger. If it was going to be killed, it would have been killed long ago. He had already prepared for the worst. At worst, he could just find another one. Thinking of this, Xia Pingan's state of mind completely calmed down, and he was no longer anxious. There was no point in being anxious. He had to deal with the matter in front of him that was related to his life first. Xia Pingan found a place to sit down comfortably. Leaning against the inner wall of the conch shell, he took out the formation plate of his tortoiseshell's 5 elements upside down 8 trigrams sword formation. This formation plate had saved his life when the Abyssal Worm King raided the undead city. Of course, Xia Pingan would not forget that this thing was very useful. The formation plate of the tortoiseshell's 5 elements upside down 8 trigrams sword formation had been damaged. Xia Pingan planned to repair it now. After taking out the formation plate, Xia Pingan took out a pile of gold coins, as well as a few pieces of strange black metal that he had obtained from Lu Yiqian. Then, he prepared to repair the formation plate. Those pieces of black metal were extremely black, as if they could absorb light. When he held them in his hand, their weight was almost twice that of gold. The characteristics of this metal made Xia Pingan think of Tai black gold. However, he had never seen Tai black gold before. He had only seen it in secret books, so he was not sure. Xia Pingan dipped a bit of his secret mandala's divine power into the metal, but was absorbed by the metal like a sponge. This characteristic was very similar to Tai black gold. Xia Pingan took out a piece of pitch black metal and directly asked Lu Yiqian in the cage, "Is this Tai black gold? If it is, nod. If it isn't, shake your head. If you lie to me, I will break one of your fingers." Lu Yiqian in the cage naturally understood. Lu Yiqian, who had transformed into a monkey, clasped his hands and desperately nodded. This bastard Lu Yiqian indeed had some good stuff. This Tai black gold was one of the rare metals that was 10,000 times more precious than gold. You might not even be able to buy it with money. These precious metals were used by big shots to create soul tools, saint tools, or high-grade formation plates. In Lu Yiqian's spatial equipment, there were about 300 to 500 gene of Tai black gold. Now that he knew it was Tai black gold, things would be easier. Xia Pingan picked up a piece of Tai black gold, formed a secret hand seal, and began to refine it. That piece of Tai black gold floated in front of Xia Pingan. In the blink of an eye, it was surrounded by a ball of high-temperature blue flames. Ordinary flames could not melt Tai black gold. Therefore, when melting Tai black gold, one had to use divine power as a catalyst to inject divine power into the Tai black gold. Only then would the Tai black gold melt under the high temperature and become malleable. As Xia Pingan injected his divine power, the piece of Tai black gold melted under the high temperature. Then, Xia Pingan grabbed the gold coin in front of him and rubbed it with his hand. The gold coin was crushed in a fine powder. The fine powder fell from the sky and turned into drops of golden liquid. The drops of golden liquid dripped onto the Tai black gold that had already melted into liquid. Tai black gold could not be directly used for cooking. It had to be formed into an alloy with gold. However, the golden ratio had to be controlled very strictly. It could only be added drop by drop after melting. If the ratio was not controlled well, the Tai black gold would explode and be difficult to use. After fusing with more than 6 gold coins worth of golden liquid, the Tai black gold instantly turned from black to dark purple. That's enough. Xiao Pingan stopped at once. Then Xiao Pingan formed a seal, and the melted, deep purple liquid was absorbed by his disc array bit by bit. It turned into a purple liquid film and enveloped the disc array. In the blink of an eye, some of the cracks on the formation disc of the 5 elements inverted 8 trigram sword formation were filled and repaired by the purple liquid of Tai black gold. The 6 golden turtles on the formation disc flew out and made way for the 6 formation devices on the formation disc. Then, the purple liquid of Tai black gold gradually turned into 6 golden turtles under Xiao Pingan's hand gesture. The 6 golden turtles returned to their array positions. After the excess purple liquid of Tai black gold repaired the disc array, the rest was absorbed by the disc array. After Xiao Pingan finished his work, he stretched out his hand, and a somewhat luxurious and profound tortoise-shell 5 elements inverted 8 trigrams sword formation with a tinge of purple and gold steadily fell into Xiao Pingan's hand. Compared to the previous disc array, this new disc array was not only completely repaired, but the array base of the disc array was also strengthened by the Tai black gold. Its endurance was greatly increased. The 6 golden turtles in the array tool had all become materials of the Tai black gold. The defensive power of the disc array directly increased by more than 40%. Even if there was a huge change like the one in the Immortal City, this disc array would be able to last longer. When he cracked Lu Yiqian's disc array, Xiao Pingan had some insights on the structure of chain arrays and disc arrays. However, he did not test it at this moment. He first repaired and strengthened the old disc array so that it could be used. Once the disc array was repaired, 3 to 4 hours passed. While Xiao Pingan was repairing the disc array, Lu Yiqian, who was in the beast cage, had been watching with his eyes wide open. He was incomparably quiet, his gaze focused and his expression grave. Occasionally, a strange glint would flash across his eyes. Lu Yiqian seemed to understand why he was ambushed when he was recovering in the cave. The person in front of him was a powerful array master. However, how did this array master know his name and whereabouts? Lu Yiqian faintly felt that this array master seemed to be related to Xiao Pingan. However, he was a wily old fox and did not ask. No, Xiao Pingan simply did not give him a chance to speak. There were still countless mysteries filling Lu Yiqian's head. Xiao Pingan put away the disc array, glanced at Lu Yiqian, and continued to make things. This time, silver coins melted in front of Xiao Pingan. Under the spell and flame, 2 hours later, a palm-sized lifelike silver puppet spider puppet appeared on Xiao Pingan's palm. As Xiao Pingan forced a drop of blood onto the puppet spider's head, the puppet spider's body shook violently. Its eyes opened at once, and then it crawled around on Xiao Pingan's hand with incomparable agility. This mechanical puppet spider was a level 1 mechanical puppet in the Kunlun Formation Mechanisms collection. It was called the Iron Guard Spider. The collection had its refining blueprint and related spell techniques. To a mechanical engineer, using secret techniques to create puppets and all kinds of mechanical beasts was a completely different level of creation compared to engineers creating cars and robots. One of them followed the laws of physics, while the other followed the laws of magic. The two of them used completely different energy systems. The former's energy came from electricity, oil, and other energy sources. The energy had to be drawn from the outside world, while the latter's energy came from the core of the 5 elements array in the refining blueprint. The former was to create mechanical products, while the latter was more like creating a simple life with a mechanical appearance. Some of the high-level mechanical puppets even had considerable intelligence and the ability to learn by themselves. Seeing that Xiao Pingan had actually created a silver spider puppet, Lu Yiqian in the cage looked at Xiao Pingan with an even stranger expression. Formation masters and machine engineers, these two occupations were not compatible, but this person in front of him actually knew both. Looking at this small silver spider, Xiao Pingan revealed a smile. Machine engineers were actually the occupation that could let people regain their childhood memories the most. Xiao Pingan wanted to test the abilities of this level 1 mechanical puppet. He took out a silver coin, flicked it on his finger, pointed at the silver coin, and gave the order to kill in his heart. The silver spider puppet in his hand suddenly bounced up more than 2 meters high. A silver light flashed in the air, and the silver coin split into two, falling down from the air. Then, the spider puppet landed steadily on the ground. Lu Yiqian was still watching from the side. He did not expect Xiao Pingan to point at Lu Yiqian in the cage and say to the spider puppet, "If it leaves the cage, kill it." The spider puppet understood and nodded. Then, it nimbly ran to the front of the beast cage, squatted down in front of Lu Yiqian, and stared at Lu Yiqian. In the past, Lu Yiqian would never have placed such a small toy that could only deal with ordinary people in his eyes. But now he was just a monkey. Looking at the broken silver coin on the ground, Lu Yiqian only felt bitterness in his mouth. Chapter 490. Xiao Pingan didn't pay any attention to Lu Yiqian in the beast cage. This was a warning to Lu Yiqian. He used the mechanism technique to create that puppet spider to deal with Lu Yiqian. It could be considered as a small insurance. If he returned to Earth in 2 days, his main body would be in the same place as Lu Yiqian in the beast cage. He had to have something that could deter Lu Yiqian, lest Lu Yiqian had other thoughts. As for summoned creatures, those summoned creatures wouldn't stay in this plane for too long. They would dissipate after 3 to 5 days at most and wouldn't be of much use. However, this puppet spider was different. It wouldn't be a problem even if it stared at Lu Yiqian for 8 to 10 years. Of course, this was on the premise that Lu Yiqian could escape from the beast cage. Based on the current situation, it was impossible for Lu Yiqian to escape from the beast cage. Therefore, this puppet spider was a precautionary measure. Lu Yiqian was too cunning and vicious, so it had to be guarded against. You can eat this for the next few days. Xiao Pingan took out a handful of fasting pills, directly throwing them into the beast cage's food trough. Then, with a light wave of his hand, the beast cage containing Lu Yishuang moved along the space inside the conch shell, like a slide, sliding down to a place below the conch shell where he couldn't see. He knew that Lu Yiqian was very smart and would overthink things. Previously, he let Lu Yiqian see his skills as a formation master and mechanism master to deliberately make Lu Yiqian confused about his identity. Now that he had achieved his goal, Xiao Pingan couldn't be bothered to let Lu Yiqian spy on him. Seeing Lu Yiqian's beast cage slide to the bottom, the puppet spider took a step forward. Like a fast-moving spider, it quickly moved its legs and followed the beast cage to the bottom. Then, it stared at the beast cage and faithfully carried out Xiao Pingan's orders. The greatest advantage of these mechanical puppets was that they would never betray their master. Like a program, they would always carry out their master's orders. As long as the monkey in the cage left the cage, it would kill the monkey. This order was very simple, and the puppet spider could carry it out meticulously. Xiao Pingan ate 2 Shinli Dan and fasting pills, drank some water, and then closed his eyes to sleep. Ever since Immortal City underwent such a huge change, he had been fighting all the way until now. He hadn't closed his eyes even once, so he felt a little tired. After taking the pill, Xiao Pingan closed his eyes and rested for 3 to 4 hours. His spirit had recovered. Then, Xiao Pingan took out the newly obtained realm pearl. Xiao Qian had obtained these realm pearls after killing the winged flame bug in Immortal City. After the winged flame bug was sent to a secret warehouse, the pharmacist and craftsman in the mandala chopped it into pieces. Xiao Pingan had also obtained 2 realm pearls. Of the 2 realm pearls, one was Tian Guanglonyang's realm pearl that Xiao Pingan had fused with before, and the other was one that he had not fused with before. It just so happened that he could take it out and fuse with it now. This realm pearl flickered with an earthy yellow light, and there was a vague light and shadow in the realm pearl. In the light and shadow, there was the figure of a soldier wearing battle armor. That soldier was definitely not an ordinary soldier, as ordinary soldiers would not carry so many weapons. However, from the light and shadow, it could be seen that this soldier was wearing thick armor and had at least 3 weapons on him. There was a huge shield and arrows on his back, and the shape of a crossbow could be faintly seen. That soldier was also holding a halberd in his hand and a sword hanging on his waist. To an ancient soldier, this soldier was already armed to the teeth. In all the dynasties, there was only one person who could complete such a configuration for a soldier: Wei Wuzu. Just as Xiao Pinggan thought, there were only 3 words in Xiaozhuan in this realm pearl: Wei Wuzu. This was the strongest infantry in the history of China. This was the first special force in China's history that had been created by the military god Wu Qi. Yes, in Xiao Pinggan's view, the Wei Wuzu was the first true special force in China's history. Practically every soldier in this unit had been chosen according to the standards that Wu Qi had used to select special forces, and they had undergone strict training before becoming an army. Just how strong was the Wei Wuzu? From the time this unit had appeared to the time when it had been submerged in the river of history, this unit had participated in 72 battles and had not suffered a single defeat. In the battle of the Yin and Jin dynasties, the 500,000-strong Qin soldiers had been defeated by the 50,000 Wei Wuzu. The Wei Wuzu had been able to fight against 10 Qin soldiers alone. In the era of the Wei Wuzu, the entire Qin state had been shrouded in the shadow of the Wei Wuzu. The Qin army had been suppressed by the Wei Wuzu to the point that they could not breathe. Wu Qi had relied on the Wei Wuzu to suppress the powerful Qin state in the narrow area west of Mount Hua. They could not cross Mount Hua, and it was like grinding a fierce tiger against the ground. Although history had always liked to judge heroes by their successes and failures, the Wei Wuzu's glorious achievements made them the undisputed number 1 infantry unit in ancient China. The valiant spirit of China's ancestors had been vividly displayed by the Wei Wuzu. After dripping a drop of blood on the realm pearl, Xiao Pinggan was quickly enveloped in a yellow cocoon of light. Xiao Pinggan opened his eyes and found himself standing on a high platform. Beside him were generals with solemn expressions, standing on either side of him with their hands on their swords. In front of him was the drill ground of a huge military camp. Behind him were banners that fluttered in the wind, and a huge banner with the word Wei written on it. A man with a long beard wearing a graceful and elegant purple robe with beautiful jade hanging from his waist stood beside Xiao Pinggan. General, the elites of the Wei state are here today. This humble one will hand them over to you. Please feel at ease and choose the elites to form the Wei Wuzu. General, you said that the most important thing in an army is quality, not quantity. This humble one feels that this humble one is very reasonable. Today, I will wait and see how the general chooses. Looking at the man's appearance, Xiao Pinggan knew that this man was Wei Wenho, a wise ruler of a generation. Without Wei Wenho, there would be no Wei state, and there would be no Wei Wuzu. Xiao Pinggan bowed to Wei Wenho and then walked to the front of the platform. After thinking for a while, he began to speak loudly. Today, the king is here. I will choose the elites of the Wei state for the king. The king has already agreed that all the soldiers that I choose today will have their entire family exempted from taxes. If there are outstanding individuals, they will be rewarded with land and real estate. In this era, there were no loudspeakers. Wu Qi was also not a peerless expert like in novels who could roar like a lion. Once he opened his mouth, it could be heard from miles away. In such an occasion, in the army below, every few dozen steps, there would be an officer standing by the side of the formation. The officer in front would shout out what he heard without missing a word, and the one behind him would continue to pass it on. Therefore, in a moment, the entire drill ground was filled with Wei State officers shouting at the top of their lungs. They passed on what Xiao Pinggan had just said without missing a word so that all the soldiers could hear. During the Warring States period, because of the struggle for hegemony, the taxes of the people of each country were very heavy. The Wei State soldiers on the drill ground were all stirred up. If one was chosen today, they would have their entire family exempted from taxes. This treatment was too exciting. It was really like, if one joins the army, his entire family will be honored, and the entire village will be envious of him. Everyone was suddenly energized. They pricked up their ears and puffed out their chests, wanting to hear Xia Pingan announce the selection criteria. Xia Pingan waited for the voices on the drill ground to stop before he opened his mouth again. If you want to be chosen, your entire family will be exempted from taxes. It is very simple. As long as you can fulfill the following requirements, you will be chosen. I only have one condition. Anyone who wants to be chosen as a soldier must wear 3 layers of heavy armor and an iron helmet, be able to fire a 12-pickle crossbow, carry 50 crossbow bolts on their back, wield a halberd or spear, carry a sharp sword, carry 3 days' worth of rations and shields, and be able to march 100 li in a day. These were only the most basic requirements for the selection of soldiers. After completing the selection, Xia Pingan also knew that Wu Qi had created the earliest elite training system for the soldiers of the Wei state, which was far ahead of this era. He had established a training system for the soldiers of the Wei state that was equivalent to a training camp in the future. As the saying went, if one person learns, he will teach 10 people. If 10 people learn, he will teach 100 people. If 10 people learn, he will teach 100 people. If 10 people learn, he will teach 3 armies. The instructors were all top experts who used crossbows, swords, halberds, and spears on the battlefield. They were completely the same as the instructors of the special forces. Chapter 491. With a flash of light, Xia Pingan appeared in the spirit realm's spirit husbandry stronghold. The stronghold was still the same as before. It was ancient and had not changed at all. There were no spiritual stars in the sky of the stronghold, which meant that it was daytime in the material world outside Earth. Most people were busy with their lives, and few were sleeping. Xia Pingan let out a long sigh. Fortunately, there was a golden arch door in the spirit realm's shrine in his secret mandala that could directly enter the stronghold. Without that golden arch door, he would have to return to the immortal city to find the entrance to the spirit husbandry stronghold. Just thinking about the consequences of that was terrifying. Your Majesty, you're back. Elder Mu's figure floated from afar and appeared in front of Xia Pingan in the blink of an eye. He looked at Xia Pingan seriously and asked, Your Majesty, is your original body all right? Last time, Xia Pingan left his clone and rushed back in a hurry. He did not even have the time to summon his clone. It was obvious that he was in a hurry. Elder Mu naturally knew that Xia Pingan's main body had encountered a problem, which was why Xia Pingan had stopped the doppelganger mystic technique that was less than 1/5 complete. It's fine. I've already taken care of the matters outside. Now that my original body is safe, I'm back. Xia Pingan let out a long sigh. He had made a dojo in a snail shell in a remote sea area in the immortal sea that no one cared about. He had just spent more than an hour perfectly fusing with Wei Wuzu's realm pearl. His secret mandala's divine power had increased by 36 points. Now, it had reached 7,796 points. His strength had improved a little. Everything was gradually back on track. Therefore, after fusing with the realm pearl, he directly came to the spirit realm. However, Xia Pingan did not say too much. He could only bear these things by himself. Elder Mu could not help him. If he said too much, Elder Mu would be worried. Xia Pingan's gaze swept across the buildings, towers, and walls in the stronghold. By the way, is the stronghold all right? It's fine. Since Your Majesty used the flaming Vajra to wipe out the horseshoe beetles and zombies in the stronghold, there are very few horseshoe beetles and zombies around the stronghold. The damaged stone guards of the stronghold have been repaired. The stronghold's current situation is surprisingly good. Elder Mu revealed a satisfied smile. Ever since Xia Pingan came to the stronghold had gradually begun to change in a good direction. This made Elder Mu very happy. Xia Pingan looked at Elder Mu and found that the soul power fluctuations on Elder Mu's body seemed to have weakened a lot compared to the last time they met. Elder Mu's body became a little more transparent. This made Xiao Pingon immediately know that the repair of the stone guard that Elder Mu mentioned might have cost him a lot of soul power. Xiao Pingon did not say anything else. He raised his hand, and specks of golden light flew towards Elder Mu like fireflies. They replenished Elder Mu's soul power with about 2 horseshoe beetles. Elder Mu's body instantly condensed and became more substantial. The color of his body became even more vivid. "Your Majesty, this is too wasteful. I already have enough soul power," Elder Mu hurriedly said. "It's fine. If I don't have enough soul power, I can go outside and hunt a few more horseshoe beetles and zombies to replenish it. You take care of the stronghold, and your responsibility is great. Nothing must happen to you. If something happens to you, I won't even have someone to talk to. So please don't be polite with me," Xiao Pingon said generously. Elder Mu was a little touched, but he only nodded. After replenishing Elder Mu's soul power, Xiao Pingon went directly to a tower in the stronghold and sat down cross-legged. He began to use a secret technique to sense his avatar. He wanted to confirm if Luo and's avatar was still alive. Elder Mu stood beside Xiao Pingon, as if he was protecting Xiao Pingon. In terms of time, Xiao Pingon had left Luo and's avatar for almost 3 days. In the chaos of Paris, once Xiao Pingon's spiritual body left, Luo and's body fell into a deep slumber. At this point, Xiao Pingon was not optimistic about whether Luo and was still alive. If Luo and died, Xiao Pingon would just have to find another avatar and start a new fusion. With his eyes closed, Xiao Pingon entered the realm of the secret technique. But soon his spiritual body immediately sensed the avatar. Luoan was still alive. Although his aura was a little weak, he was still alive. This made Xiao Pingon very surprised. Xiao Pingon, who was sitting cross-legged, was not in a hurry to go back. Instead, he opened his eyes with a puzzled expression. "Your Majesty, is the avatar still there?" Elder Mu asked. "The avatar is still there." Xiao Pingon nodded. "But I'm not too sure about the avatar situation. It might be troublesome. If your Majesty wants to give up on the avatar, you can find another one. As long as the avatar's spiritual body does not return for a long time, it will naturally disappear again." I don't plan to give up yet. I'll go back and take a look later. Now I have other things to do. I'll deal with them first." Xiao Pingon had already stood up and walked down the tower. Elder Mu was stunned. "Your Majesty, what do you want to do now?" "I've told you before that there's a golden arch door that leads to other worlds in the spiritual realm corresponding to Immortal City. I haven't seen that golden arch door yet. I'll go take a look first and have my spiritual realm shrine copy that golden arch door. It'll be more convenient for me to go there in the future." Xiao Pingon should have gone to take a look before, but he had unknowingly delayed it until now. After experiencing the great change in Immortal City, Xiao Pingon realized the preciousness of those golden arches that led to different spiritual realms. They were important resources. This time, he wanted to take a look there first and have his spiritual realm shrine add another spiritual realm passage. As they spoke, Xiao Pingon had already arrived at the square of Spirit Husbandry Fortress. The golden arch door that led to Spirit Husbandry Fortress stood on the stone platform of the square. In the middle of the golden arch door was a swirl of white light. On the other side of the golden arch door was the spiritual realm corresponding to Immortal City. The other golden arch door was not far away. The spiritual realm behind the golden arch door is almost completely destroyed. There was originally a fortress behind the golden arch door, but that fortress has sunk to the bottom of the water. "Your Majesty, please be careful," Elder Mu reminded. "Okay, I'll be careful. Don't forget, I still have Flaming King Kong." As Xiao Pingon spoke, he stepped out of the stronghold's golden arch door and appeared in the spiritual world stronghold that corresponded to the Undying City. At this moment, Immortal City had been destroyed by the Abyssal Worm King, but there was nothing unusual about the spiritual realm fortress. It was still the same as before. A layer of floating fog filled this desolate space. As soon as Xiao Pingon stepped out of this golden arch door, he saw another golden arch door not far away. Xiao Pingon ran over and quickly arrived at the bottom of another golden arch door. On this golden arch door, there were 12 different mysterious patterns. They were like the swirling Milky Way or the orbits of the stars. There were lines that resembled vines and fruits, and they were filled with a mysterious beauty. None of the patterns were the same. The mysterious patterns on the arched door that led back to Earth's spiritual realm had 9 circles, and they were all different. Xiao Pingan had been guessing whether they corresponded to the 9 planets of the solar system, and the one in front of him corresponded to a galaxy with 12 planets. There was no point in thinking too much. Xiao Pingan stepped into the arched door with a single step. Seawater, he was surrounded by seawater. As soon as he appeared on the other side of this golden arched door, Xiao Pingan was surrounded by seawater. What appeared in front of him was a deserted fortress at the bottom of the sea, several hundred meters deep. The entire fortress was soaked in water and was severely damaged. It was full of the vicissitudes of history, like a prehistoric relic. Even the golden arch door behind him was covered with a layer of scorched rock and dust from the bottom of the sea. The original gold color could no longer be seen. Only the flickering white vortex in the golden arch door still existed. There were several collapsed pillars in the surroundings that almost covered this place. There was a deathly stillness underwater. Xiao Pingan swam outside and quickly swam out of the fortress. Outside the fortress at the bottom of the sea, there was a city and land completely submerged in the sea. The traces of the man-made buildings were still clear. The spiritual realm of this world seemed to have experienced a terrible catastrophe. The entire continent in front of him seemed to have sunk into the water. Chapter 492. Xiao Pingan swam around the undersea stronghold, carefully observing the environment. In the spiritual realm, the spirit body was the same as the physical body. The spirit body could do whatever the physical body could do, and the spirit body could do whatever the physical body couldn't do. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for an intermediate spirit herder to dive into the sea. Xiao Pingan's soul power spontaneously formed a protective layer around his body. There was a deathly stillness in the ocean of this world, which made people feel very depressed. As far as Xiao Pingan could see, other than some marine plants, there were no other creatures in the sea. As for islands, there were no other creatures nearby. The more danger you couldn't see in a place like this, the more dangerous it was. Damn it, this place doesn't feel right. Xiao Pingan muttered to himself as he swam in the water. Xiao Pingan didn't cause any trouble. This time, he entered the spirit world mainly to leave a passage and coordinates for his spirit world god palace. He didn't know where this world was, so he would explore it in the future when he had the chance. With that thought, Xiao Pingan turned around and swam back to the golden arch of the fortress. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the white vortex and left this place. After returning to the spirit husbandry fortress, Xiao Pingan used the doppelganger mystic technique. Soon, he disappeared from the spirit husbandry fortress and returned to Luo An's body. When he opened his eyes again, it was like waking up from a dream. Xiao Pingan saw the foredrip. The foredrip was connected to his hand, and he was giving himself an infusion. There was a gorgeous crystal chandelier above his head. Xiao Pingan was very familiar with this crystal chandelier. It was Emily's living room, and he was lying on the sofa in the living room. He wasn't thrown out, and he was being given in foredrip after being unconscious. This result was 100 times better than what Xiao Pingan expected. He was overjoyed. Just as he wanted to stand up, he realized that he couldn't move at all. His hands were tied up, and even his legs were tied up. He couldn't move at all. After being happy for less than 2 seconds, Xiao Pingan realized that his lower abdomen was a little bloated. The feeling from his bladder told him that he couldn't hold it in anymore. Damn, this is too embarrassing. Was he going to pee his pants when he returned to his clone? Xiao Pingan turned his head and looked around. It was dark in the living room, and there was no one in sight. Looking through the narrow window in the living room, it was dark outside, and the faint sound of gunshots could be heard from downtown Paris. Emily! Emily! Xiao Pingan, who was tied up, could only shout from the sofa. Emily was the only one in the villa. Needless to say, Emily didn't throw him out, but at the same time, she restricted his freedom. Xiao Pingan only shouted twice before footsteps could be heard coming from the stairs next to the living room. Emily, whose hair was a little fluffy, seemed to have just gotten out of bed. She was wearing white pajamas with a coat over it. She was holding a candlestick in one hand and a pistol in the other as she walked down the stairs. Xiao Pingan, you're awake. Emily glanced at Xiao Pingan, who was lying on the sofa, but she didn't come over. Instead, she sat down on the sofa next to Xiao Pingan and placed the candlestick on the table between them. Under the flickering candlelight, Emily's expression was unusually calm. Her eyes weren't friendly, and her tone was very calm. Great, Emily, it's really you. Help me untie, Xiao Pingan said. Emily didn't come over. She just sat down on the sofa and pointed the gun barrel at Xiao Pingan. She said to herself, You've been unconscious for 3 days. In order to prevent you from dying, I could only give you a glucose drip. It seems to be effective. Emily, can you untie me? I want to go to the washroom now. Hee, what do you want to do in my house? Emily stared at Xiao Pingan with a hint of fierceness and anger. Do you think I'm the only one living here, so you want to rob me and this villa? Emily, you've misunderstood. It's not what you think. Xiao Pingan tried his best to speak slowly. He felt that the pressure on his bladder would increase if he spoke more forcefully. F***CK. Misunderstood? Emily looked at Xiao Pingan with a calmness that didn't match her age. She opened the drawer beside her and took out all the weapons that Xiao Pingan had brought with him when he came to the villa. A HK-416C, a Beretta 92F, some magazines for submachine guns and pistols, a dagger, and of course those gold necklaces, rings, and other things. These things didn't belong to Xiao Pingan at first glance. Together with those weapons, it was obvious that Xiao Pingan was a fully armed thug. Emily looked at Xiao Pingan with disdain and anger. She raised her voice slightly. How do you explain these things? Did you bring these things to visit my house? Luo Ron, you've changed. Luoan, you've changed. You're no longer that talented painter full of dreams. Have you also degenerated into those filthy hyenas and scavengers outside? You rely on plundering and robbing the weak to survive. It's really disgusting to think that I still treated you as a friend. However, the heavens are still on my side. You inexplicably fainted, which allowed me to discover your true colors. Xiao Pingan knew that Emily had misunderstood him. This misunderstanding was really a bit F***ket up. These things really don't belong to me. I robbed them from those gangsters after killing them. I'm really here to visit your parents. I don't have a suitable place to live in Paris, so I was wondering whether I could rent your house. Those money and items are the rent that I brought. I think they should be enough to pay the rent for a period of time. Luo Ron, your lie is very low level. Do you mean that you've robbed those gangsters and are the nemesis of those hyenas and scavengers? If you didn't teach me how to draw but taught me how to fight or shoot, I might have believed your nonsense. But have you forgotten that time when you were robbed by gangsters? When you saw a gangster with a knife, your legs went soft. I don't believe that you have such ability. Tell me honestly, what do you want to do here? Emily said as she raised her pistol and pointed it at Xiao Pingan. Don't think that I don't dare to shoot. You've changed, so will I. F***CK. If this conversation continued, Xiao Pingan felt that he would really pee his pants. Whatever. With a thought, an elite slave soldier was summoned by Xiao Pingan. It instantly pounced out of the darkness behind Emily. The elite slave soldier's movements were very fast. Before Emily could react, she felt a black shadow suddenly appear behind her. The elite slave soldier's spear was already thrusting towards her, and the pistol in Emily's hand flew far away, causing Emily to let out a scream. Emily finally saw the appearance of that elite slave soldier. Her face instantly changed. The elite slave soldier that walked out of the darkness was covered in a layer of faint red light. His eyes were cold, and his movements were swift. After knocking away Emily's weapon with one shot, the elite slave soldier leaped over the sofa and stabbed out 2 more times. The sharp tip of the spear flicked upwards, and the ropes binding Xiao Pingan's hands and feet were loosened. Xiao Pingan immediately jumped up and pulled out the needle that was inserted into his blood vessel. He then rushed towards the villa's washroom. Xiao Pingan was very familiar with the location of the villa's washroom. He used to come here often. A minute later, after the sound of flushing came from the washroom, Xiao Pingan felt relieved and walked back into the living room. Emily was still sitting on the sofa. The spearhead of the elite slave soldier that Xiao Pingan summoned was placed on Emily's shoulder, causing her to be unable to move. Emily stared at Xiao Pingan with her eyes wide open. Her expression was as though she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Luowen, you're actually a summoner. When she said the word summoner, Emily's face was filled with excitement. Her chest was heaving up and down, and she couldn't help but want to stand up. On Earth, the word summoner seemed to have some kind of magical power that made people revere. Xiao Pingan sat back down on his sofa and took the HK 416C and the Beretta 92F that originally belonged to him from the table. He put them in his arms. He also picked up Emily's pistol from the ground and placed it back on the table. Emily, I hope you can keep this a secret from me. For the time being, I don't want the whole world to know that I'm a summoner. What I said just now is true. I didn't lie to you. I'm really here to visit your parents. I have no ill intentions towards you, Xiao Pingan said. Then, he waved his hand gently. The summoned elite slave soldier put away its spear and slowly retreated to the villa's entrance. It stood there motionless like a statue. Emily regained her freedom. Luowen, I believe you. Since you're a summoner, the things in my house are nothing to you, Emily said directly. She stared at Xiao Pingan with sparkling eyes. When did you become a summoner? Or have you been one since before, and you're just deliberately hiding it from me? It's a long story. You just need to know that I have no ill intentions towards you. Xiao Pingan had just said this when he realized that his stomach was rumbling again. He wanted to go to the toilet again. This feeling was like eating something bad. Xiao Pingan's stomach kept growling, and even Emily could hear it. Xiao Pingan felt inexplicably awkward. Damn it, I haven't eaten anything yet. What's going on? Emily looked at Xiao Pingan with a strange expression. She hesitated for a moment before finally saying softly, Luowen, why don't you go to the toilet again? The glucose that I injected you with earlier is a reserve from my underground warehouse. It seems to have expired, but I think it can still be used, so... Expired? Xiao Pingan. Chapter 493. He didn't know what was wrong with this body. He didn't know what kind of complicated and inexplicable chemical reaction happened between the expired glucose and his clone stomachache. Perhaps Emily didn't tell him the truth when she added something else to the injection, or perhaps his spirit and body hadn't completely fused yet. Most likely, Emily fed him something when he was unconscious and then injected him with glucose later on. In short, Xiao Pingan repeatedly went to the washroom for 6 or 7 times in the last half an hour before the abnormal sound in his stomach finally stopped. F***CK. When Xiao Pingan walked out of the washroom for the last time, he felt that his legs were soft and his heart was still palpitating. It was as if this world had given him a warning. With a pale face, Xiao Pingan supported himself against the wall and returned to the living room. Panting heavily, he sat down on the sofa and felt a bit dizzy. F***CK. I didn't even feel so tired when I escaped from the encirclement of the Zerg army in Immortal City. This body is too weak. Emily became an obedient girl at this moment as she looked at Xiao Pingan with a guilty conscience. Luowen, do you want me to give you a glass of water? I think you're a bit dehydrated, Emily said in a low voice. Emily, tell me honestly, what else did you inject into me besides expired glucose? Xiao Pingan asked. Xiao Pingan suspected that he was poisoned. If so, he had to take other measures to remedy it. Emily avoided Xiao Pingan's gaze as she looked at her toes. I didn't inject anything. Actually, I don't know how to inject anything. You're the first one. When you fainted, I thought you were hungry. Therefore, I found something that could be dissolved in the underground warehouse and poured it into your mouth. I thought it would be useful, but later on, I found that thing had expired. What thing? Expired vitamins. After Emily finished speaking, She blinked her beautiful big eyes. Looking at the expression on Xia Pingyan's face, she hurriedly explained, "Believe me, I didn't do it on purpose. At that time, I just didn't pay attention to the production date of those vitamins. I thought it would be useful for you. I actually don't know how to save people, Xia Pingyan. Sit down, I'll get you some water." Emily hurriedly ran off. Xia Pingyan shook his head and smiled bitterly as he looked at the few failed needle marks on his arm and the bruises around them. Forget it. Emily was already giving him face by not feeding him poison. Emily quickly brought over a cup of water and carefully placed it in front of Xia Pingyan. Xia Pingyan took a sip and immediately became nervous because the water was sweet. Could it be something that had expired? "Don't worry, this is honey." Hearing that it was honey, Xia Pingyan was relieved and finished the water in big gulps. After drinking the cup of water, his whole body felt much better. "Thank you. I didn't expect you to still have honey at home. Honey is a luxury item in Paris now. I have a lot of honey stored in my house. My father said that honey can be stored for a long time and can be used when we're seeking refuge. It won't expire," Emily hurriedly explained. However, when she mentioned her father, the light in her eyes dimmed immediately. "By the way, what happened to Mr. Geller? Why are you the only one living here?" Xia Pingyan finally asked. Emily shed tears and said in a low voice, "Before the heavenly tribulation, my father and mother were on vacation in a villa in Marseille. At that time, we were talking on the phone. I heard my mother screaming on the phone that she saw demon rats. Then I heard gunshots and my father's roar. Then I heard their screams. Their screams became softer and softer, and I even heard the sound of demon rats gnawing." Emily covered her face as tears flowed down between her fingers. "I originally wanted to go to Marseille to find them, but then the heavenly tribulation came. Toulon was hit by many huge meteorites, and the tsunamis and explosions buried the entire Marseille." At this point, Emily sobbed in a low voice, feeling weak and helpless. Toulon was the largest military port in France. Such an important military base was completely destroyed in the last heavenly tribulation. Xia Pingyan didn't know how to comfort her. For a girl, such an outcome was too cruel. Emily had witnessed her parents die from the space invasion on the phone, and then the heavenly tribulation that came later killed her parents. "Emily, your parents must want you to live well." Xia Pingyan stood up and walked over to pat Emily on the shoulder. "If there's anything I can help you with, you can tell me. I'll come to see you in the future." Xia Pingyan already wanted to leave. Emily suddenly raised her head. Although there were still tears in her eyes, she quickly recovered and looked a little stronger. "Luoan, can you let me become a summoner?" Xia Pingyan was stunned. "You want to become a summoner?" "Yes." Emily nodded very seriously. "I want to become a summoner so that I can avenge my parents. At the same time, I can better protect myself. You're a summoner, so you must be very familiar with the world of summoners. You must know how to become a summoner. Emily, to become a summoner, you need to have a boundary pearl. Even if you have a boundary pearl, some people's physiques aren't suitable for fusion. Even if they're suitable for fusion, there's no guarantee that the fusion will succeed. Once the fusion fails, it will be life-threatening. This is a very difficult path. You think that summoners are very powerful, but the price of a summoner's power is that every step forward requires a test of life and death." Xia Pingyan said solemnly. "Luoan, wait a moment. I'll show you something." As Emily spoke, she quickly stood up and ran upstairs. After a while, Emily came down with a wooden box in her hands. She placed the wooden box on the table and opened it. In the wooden box's velvet lining, there were 3 sparkling boundary pearls. Xia Pingyan was also slightly surprised. Inside the box were 3 Swearin, Cho Clan, and Shinnon Clan's Foundation Establishment Rel pearls. To him, taking out a few boundary pearls was a very simple matter. However, to an ordinary person on Earth, taking out 3 Foundation Establishment Realm pearls was definitely not an easy task. "Emily, you actually have boundary pearls at home?" "My father bought them at an auction a long time ago. They've been at home for many years. My father originally wanted to leave them to me, but a few years ago, he found someone to examine my body. The result of that examination said that I wasn't suitable for fusion with a boundary pearl. So these 3 boundary pearls have been at home all this time, Emily explained, then looked at Xia Pingan with hopeful eyes. I heard that summoners actually have a way to refine miraculous pills that can improve the physique of ordinary people, allowing ordinary people to have the qualifications to fuse with a boundary pearl and become a summoner. Are you willing to help me? We can make an exchange. As long as you help me fuse with a boundary pearl, you can continue to live in this villa. One of the most important reasons why there weren't many people on Earth who could fuse with a boundary pearl was that the person's physique didn't meet the boundary pearl standards. The so-called physique, in addition to blood, chi, muscles, and bones, the most important point was that the person's soul power didn't meet the standard. In the words of the Great Fire Country's Committee of Order, if the person's spiritual strength wasn't strong enough, then the boundary pearl's world wouldn't be able to manifest after fusing with a boundary pearl. However, this was a problem that was not easy to solve for others, but for Xia Pingan, it was very easy for him to solve this problem. Xia Pingan looked deeply at Emily. I've told you before that walking the path of a summoner is equivalent to gambling with your life. Even if you can fuse with these 3 boundary pearls, you're still a very weak existence in the world of summoners. It's equivalent to just starting out. These 3 boundary pearls can't give you what you want. I'm not afraid. I could take it one step at a time. Instead of living a miserable life like a weakling who can't control her own fate, I'd rather fall on the path of becoming a summoner. Xia Pingan suddenly realized that although Emily was a girl, she had a stronger mentality and desire to become stronger than many men. After Emily finished speaking, she glanced at Xia Pingan again. Seeing that Xia Pingan didn't say anything, she suddenly blushed a little. She suddenly stood up, pulled her clothes, and took off her coat. It fell by her feet, and then she gently pulled the belt of her pajamas off, revealing her body completely in front of Xia Pingan. She said in a slightly trembling voice, "As long as you can help me, I'll do anything you want me to do. I can be your apprentice, your lover, your maid. Everything I have can be yours." Under the candlelight, Emily's youthful and beautiful body shimmered with a jade-like luster and a mutton fat fragrance. Emily was a little shy. She slightly lowered her head, and her beautiful wheat-colored, long curly hair hung in front of her chest, giving her a seductive charm. Although she was weak, she still stood firmly in front of Xia Pingan. Xia Pingan moved his gaze away from Emily's beautiful face and body. He patted his forehead and shook his head with a bitter smile. "You don't have to do this. Put on your clothes first. Since you want to become a summoner, be my apprentice in the future. I will help you fuse with these 3 boundary pearls. I can't promise you anything else." Emily was overjoyed at once. "Teacher, you agree?" Ahem, ahem. If you don't have any unexpired cold medicine at home, I suggest you put on your clothes first." As expected, Emily put on her clothes as she looked at Xia Pingan shyly. "Teacher, what do you want me to do now?" Xia Pingan looked at the sky outside before touching his belly. His spiritual body was fusing with this body. That cup of honey water seemed to have made his body circulate at high speed again. "Damn it, I'm hungry again. Can you make me a breakfast with higher calories?" Xia Pingan asked. Chapter 494. In the dark, the old Citroën didn't turn on its headlights. It was like a black monster that lurked at night, moving slowly on the dark streets of Paris. Only the faint roar of the exhaust pipe and engine could be heard. The old model Citroën slowly drove into a secluded alley on the main street and stopped at the entrance of the alley. Xia Pingan turned off the engine, and the roar of the engine gradually died down. Xia Pingan didn't get out of the car. Instead, he observed the surroundings to make sure that no one had noticed the car's whereabouts. After waiting for a while, he didn't find anything unusual. There wasn't a single soul on the dark street outside. Only then did Xia Pingan start to organize the weapons and magazines he carried with him. Emily was sitting in the front passenger seat. She looked a little excited and nervous. "Teacher, can summoners see the outside clearly in the dark?" "This is only the most basic ability of summoners. By the way, are you sure you know how to use this thing?" Xiao Pingan asked Emily, who was sitting in the front passenger seat. Don't worry, teacher. I know what to do. Emily held her pistol nervously as she looked at the dark street. As she gripped the gun too tightly, Emily's knuckles turned white. Through the front windshield of the old Citroën covered with dust, the dazzling lights of the square building on Bruno Street could be seen more than 2,000 meters away. The dazzling light was like a deliberate show-off in the city of Paris, where most places were dark. It could be seen from a great distance. The car was Emily's old Citroën. Xiao Pingan had stayed in Emily's villa for almost a day. He had enjoyed 2 meals cooked by Emily. Tonight, he was going to come out and smash the head of BG Gang's boss, Oni's head. After a day of recovery, Xiao Pingan's spiritual body and this doppelganger's integration had improved. At this moment, Xiao Pingan could use 178 points of divine power. The summoning slot of the Luo Net Realm Pearl could be used. The summoning slot of the Tsang Jie Realm Pearl was getting clearer. As long as Xiao Pingan was given more time, Tsang Jie Realm Pearl's ability would recover. This doppelganger's ability would reach the first Yuan realm, and he would be able to use more spells and techniques. These few days, those scumbags from BG Gang had lived for a few more days. There was no need to delay any longer. Therefore, Xiao Pingan decided to come out tonight to finish off BG Gang's boss, Oni, and take the reward so that he could continue to recuperate. After eating 2 meals today, Emily's stock of food was almost empty. Emily's parents had left her a lot of money, but most of it was in the bank and couldn't be withdrawn. In the past 2 years, Emily had been guarding her family's villa and lived carefully. There weren't many things that could be sold or exchanged for food, so she had earned money. It's not too late if you regret it now. I can send you back. Xiao Pingan looked seriously into Emily's beautiful eyes. His tone was also very serious. After I leave, you have to deal with any accidents in the car by yourself. Tonight's operation is to let you understand that the world of summoners is filled with all kinds of unknown dangers. It's not that easy to become a summoner. Emily clenched her teeth. She had already released the safety on her pistol. Teacher, go ahead. I will take care of myself. Lock the car door. If you encounter any dangerous situations, you could drive away first. You don't have to wait for me. If I don't come back within an hour, you can also leave by yourself. Xiao Pingan finally instructed Emily. Emily nodded. Xiao Pingan did not say anything else. He opened the car door, got out, and closed the door. Then, he glanced at BG Gang's headquarters, which was more than 2,000 meters away, and disappeared into the night. Square Building was a high-class office building with more than 30 floors. The exterior walls of the building were all black solar-coated glass that could generate electricity. It was very high-tech. After Paris lost its order, BG Gang took over this building and turned it into their headquarters. Even in Paris, where energy was extremely scarce at the moment, the electricity generated by this office building every day could make it shine brightly at night. It was an existence for BG Gang to show off their strength. Xiao Pingan walked quickly in the dark. In just a few minutes, he arrived at a street more than 200 meters away from Square Building. From here, he could see the entire Square Building. On the roof of the building, there was a huge neon light that looked a little ugly. The neon light was a red skull with the 2 glowing blue letters BG on top of the skull. There were many cars and motorcycles parked in the parking lot below the building. More than 30 to 40 fully armed BG Gang members with automatic weapons were gathered around a few burning barrels of gasoline. They were playing ear-piercing music, drinking, and eating. Some of them were even lying there and taking drugs. A few scantily clad women stood on top of the car and twisted their bodies, causing a group of BG Gang gangsters to scream nonstop. At the entrance of the building, many BG Gang members with automatic weapons were on alert outside the building. When Xiao Pingan arrived at the periphery of the building, a black Mercedes-Benz came from afar and stopped at the entrance of the building. As soon as the car stopped, a strong man opened the door and violently pulled the 2 women out of the car by their hair. In the screams and cries of the 2 women, he pushed them into the building. A member of the BG Gang with a submachine gun on his back was patrolling the streets outside the building. This gangster was obviously absent-minded. He wandered outside the building with a gun on his back while looking at the gathering place. He yawned from time to time, as if his drug addiction was acting up. Just as this gangster took out a small bag of something from his clothes and poured it on the back of his hand and lowered his head to inhale it, Xiao Pingon pounced out like a python in the dark. He grabbed the gangster's neck and mouth and dragged him into the shadows of the flowers. Yuni, which floor do you live on? Xiao Pingon was wearing a black hat on his head. The hat covered Xiao Pingon's face, revealing only a pair of eyes that were shining brightly. When the gangster hesitated for a moment, Xiao Pingon stabbed the gangster's thigh with his knife. At the same time, he covered the gangster's mouth so that the gangster could not scream. He could only struggle and tremble in vain under Xiao Pingon's hand. Let me ask you again, which floor do you live on? Xiao Pingon said as he pressed the dagger against the gangster's neck. The gangster's face was filled with fear. Xiao Pingon's hand that was covering the gangster's mouth loosened a little, revealing a gap. The gangster then said the answer that Xiao Pingon wanted, the top 3 floors of the building. Puff! The dagger stabbed into the gangster's heart. The gangster struggled for a moment and stopped moving. Xiao Pingon then dragged the gangster into the shadows. After a while, another gangster who was responsible for guarding the building was dragged into the darkness by Xiao Pingon. It was the same question, and the answer was the same. Xiao Pingon quickly dealt with the second gangster. There were too many people at the entrance of the building. The security inside was even stricter. The difficulty of entering the building from the entrance and then going to the top floor was self-evident. Moreover, it would alert the enemy. Xiao Pingon lurked in the darkness and carefully observed. The best way was to directly enter the top floor and attack the root of the problem. Then, he could leave without anyone knowing. If Xiao Pingon recovered his strength, this would be a piece of cake. He could directly fly up. However, at this time, he could only think of other ways. Xiao Pingon's eyes scanned the outer wall of the building inch by inch. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. The building was made of solar-coated glass that could generate electricity. The glass was made of glass, and there was an obvious steel structure between each glass. It looked very sturdy. Between the steel structure, there was an obvious protruding part of the outer wall of the building. As long as one had enough physical strength and skill, one could actually climb from the outer wall of the building to the top floor with bare hands. After making up his mind, Xiao Pingon's figure disappeared in the darkness in the blink of an eye. 2 minutes later, a figure like a gecko clung to the outer wall of the building and climbed up the building with bare hands. In less than 2 minutes, he climbed to the 10th floor and gradually disappeared into the night. In less than 10 minutes, Xiao Pingon had climbed to the top floor of the building with bare hands. He flipped over to the helipad on the top floor of the building. His movements were light and agile, and he did not alert anyone. There was no one near the helipad on the top floor of the building. The people in the building did not seem to think that someone could climb from downstairs to the top floor with bare hands. There was a staircase on the helipad that led downstairs. However, the door of the staircase was locked and could not be opened from the top floor. When Xiao Pingon thought about entering the building through the ventilation on the top floor of the building, footsteps drifted from the entrance of the staircase. The door of the staircase was open at once. A man and a coquettish red-haired woman walked out from behind the door and came to the balcony of the top floor. After that, they started to kiss, hug, and fondle intensely. The two people were having an affair on the balcony. Fady, Yuni, if he knows that you dare to touch his woman, he will never forgive you. The red-haired woman enjoyed the man's kiss and fondle as she tightly hugged the man. She then bit the man's ear and murmured in a low voice, "Yuni has too many women. 2 new ones came tonight. He has long forgotten about you. I bet you that he won't remember you in 3 days. You bitch, haven't you been waiting for me?" The man lowered his head and kissed the woman's neck as he unbuckled his belt. He had already taken the woman to the corner of the rooftop. The woman giggled in a dissolute and casual manner. She seemed to enjoy this exciting feeling very much. Just as the two of them were having an affair, Xiao Pingon suddenly appeared behind the man. One of his hands quickly slashed out and hit the woman's temple. The woman fainted without a sound. Xiao Pingon directly slit the man's neck with a dagger in his other hand. After that, he covered the man's mouth and slowly put him down on the ground. After that, Xiao Pingon silently went downstairs through the open passage of the stairwell. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.